Sound check one, Council, May 11th, sound check one.
Great, thank you very much. And I'd like to welcome everyone, members of council, our guests, and folks in the community that are tuning in this morning. The city of Hamilton is situated on the traditional territory of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. And today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our role as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website, and that the presentation and reports considered at this meeting are available on the city's website, and that members of the public can contact the clerk's office to acquire documents in an alternate format if they so wish. As well, a reminder, all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during our council meeting, and members are reminded of a 5-minute time limit. I did get an indication that Councillor Whitehead will not be joining us this morning, so just for your knowledge. And I'll turn it over to Madam Clerk and ask, are there any changes to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Good morning, Mr. Clerk and members of council. There are 53 added correspondence items. Item 4.7, correspondence respecting the mandatory COVID-19 vaccination verification policy and the cost of terminating employees. Item 4.11, correspondence respecting safer streets from many residents, with a recommendation to be received and referred to the consideration of item 7.2 of the safety enhancements to major arterial roads. Item 412, correspondence from Bob Matten respecting the denial of application UHOPA 22004 for an 8-story condo at 492 to 412 Wilson Street in Ancaster, with a recommendation to be received and referred to the consideration of item 6 of Planning Committee Report 22-007. There is one change to the disposition of a correspondence item. Item 4.5, the petition for drainage works by Road Authority. We're recommending that the recommendation be received and referred to staff for the preparation of a report to be considered by Public Works Committee. There are 3 added notices of motion. 7.1, reaffirming council's position to the amendments required to the Highway Traffic Act. Item 7.2, safety enhancements to major arterial roads. And 7.3, banning hate symbols. There is one added bill today, Bill number 116, to permanently close and sell a portion of Pinot Crescent, Stony Creek, namely part of Pinot Crescent Plan 62M-1241 of the City of Hamilton. And that is all the changes for today.
That is great, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Johnson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Pearson, thank you as well. Electronic vote is required. Madam Clerk, if you'd put that up. And everyone able to vote? Councillor Powers, specifically, you're on eScribe today and voting, thumbs up. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Powers?
Yeah, I think he'd give us a thumbs up. Okay, thank you. That's carried. So before we get to other parts of the agenda, we do have a ceremonial activity, and I'd like to begin by having a brief ceremonial presentation here for an award that the City of Hamilton was recognized for. And I'd like to turn it over to our Chief Digital Officer and Director of Innovation, Cyrus Tarani, to introduce our guest from Iris R&D. So,
Thank you, Mayor, very much. I'd like to introduce to Council David Keeney, who's the co-founder, and Julio Valalte, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Iris R&D Group, to provide some details of the award and present it virtually to the city. Before I pass it over to David and Julio, I will note that the city initially partnered with Iris on an IoT-based AI vision project, which was funded by the Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network and conducted in partnership with our Waste Division. This project focused on supporting the Waste Division and tracking their waste participation in neighborhoods, as well as automatically capturing city-owned waste collection bin data and location information. That initial project has since spun out to additional projects. And I'll note that the city also recently received and was recognized by the Municipal Road and Infrastructure Association, where we won the 2021 John Nader Better Practices Competition for innovation and innovative management practices category for using artificial intelligence technology for asset collection pilot. This project was led by our Traffic Operations and Maintenance Division, and we received the award recently at the 2022 Good Roads Annual Conference in Toronto last month, which also used Iris technology. I'll now turn it over to David and Julio for additional details about a separate award that's being presented today. Over to you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cyrus. Mayor, members of council, it is a real pleasure to attend today and present this award. But before I do, please indulge me. I'd like to share a little bit about Iris R&D. Iris epitomizes what a smart city technology company is all about, deploying in one department, then providing benefit across multiple departments, breaking down silos. And how do we do that? Our award-winning solution enables cities to monitor road and right-of-way infrastructure at a substantially lower cost by using dash cameras with artificial intelligence to detect road hazards and defects in real time. Additional benefits includes frequent reporting on industry standard pavement assessments, right-of-way inventories, and real-time mobility data such as vehicle, pedestrian, bike counts, all collected within one pass installed on an existing municipal fleet such as a bus or a waste truck. And the data we're capturing is provided more frequently, timelier, and more cost-effective than what is done currently, and is unlike anything offered in the marketplace today. Iris's technology also reduces GHG emissions by replacing dedicated patrols and surveys, while collecting real-time data that is applicable and of use across divisions of the city. And finally, let me highlight that Iris has connections with the Hamilton Innovation Factory and won various local awards, including Lions Lair 2019. We've worked closely with McMaster, Mohawk, and other local stakeholders. We were also the recent overall winner of the G20 Global Infrastructure Challenge in 2021. In fact, we were invited to attend the G20 summit in Italy last fall, and as luck would have it, it was a video call. But we're now deployed in Canada, US, Brazil, Japan, with further global expansion well underway. Julio?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mayor and Council. It is our pleasure to share with the city the Smart City 50 Awards, honoring the 50 most transformative smart city projects of the year. The Smart 50 Awards, in partnership with Smart Cities Connect and Smart Cities Connect Foundation, annually recognize the global smart city projects, honoring the most innovative and influential work. The award was originally announced in Columbus, Ohio, on the Smart Cities Connect conference in early April. The project specifically recognized the work done by the City of Hamilton in partnership with Iris to automatically capture waste program information, including the location of waste bins, waste participation rates, trash accumulation, graffiti, and right-of-way assets, which are being utilized by multiple divisions at the city. We would like to thank everyone who participated and their commitment to making this project a success. Congratulations, Mayor, and the rest of the city.
Well, thank you very much, Cyrus, David, Julio. It is my pleasure, and I'll just demonstrate the award that I have here today to accept this on behalf of the City of Hamilton. All of its great work. It's always great to see the partnerships and the projects that local smart technology companies like Iris, who also work closely with our community partners such as Innovation Factory and the Center for Integration, as you pointed out, to do good works in our community and add to our ability to improve and enhance our infrastructure going forward. So on behalf of the City of Hamilton, thank you so much for this award, much appreciated. And we'll continue to endeavor to be smart in the future as an innovative city that has, I think, made a lot of progress in intelligent community and a smart community. And certainly our staff and our chief digital officer is leading the way in terms of making sure that we're using all available digital resources to improve services in our community. So many, many thanks. Thank you for that great award. Thank you. I saw a hand up, now hand down. Was there a comment from anyone? If not, okay. So thank you again for joining us today, and I wish you a great day. And we'll all feel a little smarter today as a result of this award.
Your worship, a little feedback with Cyrus's leadership and you and the council. I think Hamilton is leading the charge in the smart city space as a municipality. So well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I couldn't agree more. And you know what? But there's always more to do. So onward and upward. Thank you.
Right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
So, members of council, we are now at declarations of interest. I do see a couple of folks that have indicated. So, who did I see? Maureen? Councillor Wilson?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Yes, item number 8 on the GIC report. It is a non-disqualifying interest regarding the naming of a facility. It's a relation, but I have no pecuniary benefit of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's not a declaration, sir, but I just thought it was worthy to put on the table. And it's with regret that I just want to announce that the passing of Lawrence Marshall, a well-known citizen in Stony Creek, also won the Citizen of the Year award in 2013. I know many our colleagues on council knew of Mr. Marshall. He was greatly involved in the Canada Flag Day and the Santa Claus parades, providing vehicles, etc. He was on a number of organizations in the city, and it's with great regret that I'm passing on the passing of Lawrence. The funeral is at 1 o'clock today. I'm hoping desperately, Mr. Mayor, as a dear friend of mine, I'd like to be able to attend. So we'll see where we're at, just so everyone knows. But Lawrence leaves behind his wife of 68 years, Lorraine Marshall, daughter Susan Lordine, many grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and I certainly, express my deepest sympathy to the family attending the visitation yesterday. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to put that on the record.
Thank you very much, and condolences to the family for sure. And I'll do our best to see if we can accommodate, your departure time. But I think it's an important one for sure. So it's in your hands in terms of whether you do break if we haven't broken already. Councillor Clark.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning.
Item 4.8 on the agenda, correspondence for 140 Garner Road. I have a disqualifying pecuniary conflict of interest as my son has a retail business interest with the principle of urban solutions. Then we go to, give me 2 seconds, sir, sorry. Item 5.3.5. So this is the Planning Committee and item 5 on the Planning Committee report. This is again the appeal of a draft subdivision application for 140 Garner Road. Again, I have a disqualifying pecuniary conflict of interests as my son has a retail business interest with the principle of urban solutions. The same would apply, sir, with 5.36, which is 15 Lorne Avenue. And the same would apply, sir, to 5.3.9, which is the Ontario Land Tribunal issue for the same property. Thank you, sir.
Okay, duly noted by the clerk. You'll remind me that we'll need separate votes on those items when we get to them. Appreciate that. Any other conflicts of interest indications? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. Duly noted. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. That's the meeting of April the 27th. I can have a motion to approve the minutes unless there's any comments or questions. Councillor Powers, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Marula. Any comments, corrections, additions? Not seeing any. Thank you. Approval of the minutes then. The vote will be up.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. We had a conflict for Councillor Pauls for one of the agenda items in one of the reports. We just want to make sure that that was an oversight or not.
Okay.
I was going to mention it when we got to the GIC. It's to do with policing. My son is a staff sergeant on the mountain here, and I'm declaring a non-disqualifying interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Was there any others? Okay. So we're at the approval of the minutes. It was moved and seconded. If you would put that vote up, Madam Clerk, that would be appreciated. And it's up. And Councillor Powers, thumbs up. Thank you. And that is carried. Councillor Wilson, a motion to put the communications items on the floor, please. You're still on mute, unfortunately.
Yes,
There you go.
my apologies, Mr. Mayor. It is so moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Marula to put the communication items on the floor.
Thank you. Communications item. So Councillor Clark identified a communications item that he had conflict in. Remind me the number of it. So
4.8, sir.
4.8, thank you. And there's another declared conflict, I believe, on 412, correspondence respecting the appeal of draft plan of subdivision, or at least that's what's being indicated here. Or it won't have to be voted on separately, Madam Clerk. Could you clarify that for me?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we'd put a separate vote in there for Councillor Clark for items 4.8 and 4.12.
Okay, all right.
It was declared conflict of the agenda items.
Right. Okay, so on 4.8, a separate vote then on that to allow Councillor Clark to declare his conflict.
We are recommending that 4.8 and 4.12 be put together for one vote, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I figured I was going to be wrong on one way, and if I said let's put them together, someone might have said no, we're going to do them separately, and so it's all good. Together then on 4.8 and 4.12, all in favor? Any opposed? And of course, an abstention. Thank you, and that's carried. And Councillor Nan on item 4.9. Can't hear you yet. Sorry. And it doesn't look like you're muted, but still can't hear you. Maybe your connections? Not yet. No.
Councillor Nan, you can try removing your headset.
I've disconnected it from the headset. Now we're going to
There you go.
There we go.
We can hear you.
Fantastic. Just on 4.9, correspondence from the Minister of Finance in response to the city's request to establish a vacant homes tax for the purposes of improving housing supply and choice in Hamilton. I just wanted to read out that it states in the correspondence that the City of Hamilton is approved to proceed with this effort in order to bring forward a vacant homes tax, but also then goes on to talk about a provincial working group that is looking at best practices in order to enhance.
Oops, we kind of lost you. Sorry, we missed. Can you hear me? Okay, we're having a bit of an audio problem here, a connection problem. So maybe Madam Clerk, you can reach out to Councillor Nan and find a solution. What I'll do is I'll turn to Councillor Wilson on item 4.9 as well. And then get back to Councillor Nan once she's got her audio issues sorted out. So Councillor Wilson.
Mr. Mayor, mine is on 4.1.
Okay, we'll go ahead on 4.1 until Councillor Nan has her issues sorted out.
Thank you. It is beyond my scope of, I have a hard time understanding how any human could hurt an animal, Mr. Mayor, and hurt dogs. But I just wanted to publicly draw attention to correspondence 4.1 from the Government of Ontario regarding updates to the Provincial Animal Welfare Services Act to keep animals safe. It seems, if I'm reading it correctly, to be an enhancement and to provide a higher bar for the protection and care of outdoor dogs. And if I'm also reading it correctly, these greater restrictions would, for our municipal bylaw animal welfare folks, these regulations would surpass or have to be abided by for our staff. And I'm just asking for confirmation of that, please and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who is on the call that can provide that confirmation?
Through the mayor to the councillor, Monica Ciriello, Director of Licensing and Bylaw Services. I'm happy to answer the question, and I think it's so timely with everyone that we've probably known over the last 2 years that have gotten a dog. But you're absolutely correct. These are provincial regulations, and they would supersede our bylaw. So if there's anything that's in conflict, they would supersede. But this legislation is actually enforced by provincial inspectors opposed to our bylaw officers.
Oh.
We'll continue to enforce our animal or responsible animal ownership bylaw, but these paused legislation are enforced by the province.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director, for clarifying that. Of course, it's also beyond my appreciation of when you get a dog, why you would keep it outside. But I appreciate this direction from the Government of Ontario. I am saddened that it's necessary, but I just wanted to draw attention to it for the public and to members of council if they had missed it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Nan wanted to point out that there was approval for the city to proceed with the vacant home tax. That report is to come back to GIC. We have not made a formal decision on that. I think one of the requests was that we asked the province if we could. And then once we got affirmation of that, then staff would bring back the fulsome report for council's consideration whether or not we're going to move forward. So that is yet to happen. So I thank you, Councillor Nan, and when you get dialed back in, I'll come back to you if we can. Councillor Pauls, item 4.1 for you, or no?
Actually, sorry,
item 4.7.
No, yeah, you're right. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, under communication number 4.7, correspondence respecting the mandatory COVID-19 vaccination policy and the cost of terminating employers. As you see, all the emails that you've received and the many that I have received have one theme, and the theme are, first of all, the accusation of transparency. We have a problem with the public that thinks we're not transparent. And it is clear that it's not just my ward, but all the wards, Ward 1, 2, through right to 15. We need to fix that. So that was one theme. The second theme was, of course, what was the cost to the taxpayers? Are we hiding this? We need to know what it's going to cost the taxpayers, because we have become the third least affordable city in North America. Family cannot pay their bills, grocery shopping, putting a roof over their head, and we all know that. The next one was, people want to know how we went against the staff recommendation, where Dr. Elizabeth, with HR, suggested we do not terminate our employees. And there are many reasons why, and I don't need to list them all. You know the reasons. And so people want to know those things. But I'm wondering if I could ask Dr. Elizabeth a question, if she's still here, if she's on the call, if I may, please.
So, these
Or
are
maybe it doesn't
communications,
have to be, maybe it could
not,
be, okay, go ahead, Mayor.
not
Sorry.
debatable items on the agenda. These are communications.
Okay,
So, I think if you want to have a larger debate on this thing, then that's another issue. You could raise that under other business.
okay, I could raise that under other business, that's fine, and
Well,
I appreciate.
there is a COVID update on the public health agenda where you could raise that as well.
Okay, so I could raise some of my questions, you say, later on today? Under,
There's a COVID update on the public health
okay,
agenda.
okay, then I
If
could
you
do
want to
that.
ask Dr. Elizabeth, some public health issues, you can ask it there.
Right, and could I also ask HR, Laura Fontana, a couple of questions? It's not debatable, it's just some question that I have received, and I want council to be aware of this. I've received lots of emails. I'm sure you have too, but there's one email that I need the answer to find out if it's true or not. And I wonder if I could ask Laura, Fontana, Director of HR. if
Okay,
you allow me
Laura?
to.
Yeah.
I had an email from one of our employees saying that even though she did not want the vaccination, she did just get the Pfizer. And she was told, the doctor told her that she cannot take the second shot till June now. And she was told, it doesn't matter, you're fired anyways. I just want to know, I just want to, first, Mayor, please, I just want to know if it's true or not. If someone received the vaccine and the doctor says you have to wait 28 days, are we forcing people now to take the vaccine one after the other? And they're going to be fired anyways? I just want to make sure the public knows that the city of Hamilton cares for their employees.
Counselor, I think you're out of order at this point on this issue. So we're we all have the communications, to be fair. You want to debate this issue. We're not going to debate
I just
this
want to know
issue
if
in
it's
this.
true.
We're not going to debate this issue. We're not going to identify individual cases and have our HR staff answer them on the fly. I think that's unfair. So if you have a generic question
Generic question is,
she could, if you
okay,
just listen for a second, if you have a generic question that she could answer, and I'll ask her if that's appropriate.
okay.
So the generic question I understand is, if they do not yet have their second dose, that the termination would happen at the end of June. I'll turn to Laura, if you could answer that question, and if not, maybe we can circle back to Councillor Pauls and provide that answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Laura Fontana, Executive Director of Human Resources. The circumstances are such that if you do not have your second dose of the vaccine by May 31st, then yes, your employment is terminated. The issue with the Pfizer or the Moderna is that there is a 28-day waiting period between first and second dose. So at this point in time, if they hadn't received their first dose to allow for that 28-day period, then yes, they wouldn't meet the requirements because they wouldn't have their second dose by May 31st. There are alternatives. There's the J&J dose, there's the Novavax, where the timelines between doses is shorter. But yes, if you don't have your second dose by May 31st, your employment is terminated.
Thank you.
And thank you for that. And I find that maybe we should relook at that. The people are getting vaccinated now, but we're just telling them they're going to be let go anyways. And I wonder if we could amend that policy and when we could do that, or I would rather rescind it all, but obviously I'm in your hands.
Okay, thank you.
And
thanks for the comments on the communications items, and we're going to marshal on to.
Can I just ask one more question about the?
No, I think time for you, unfortunately. So you can ask another question. I'm hoping that you're not digging into the same issue, but
No, I'll ask another question, please.
I'll put you back on. I'm going to turn to Councillor Jackson.
Mayor Eisenberger, good morning. My microphone was flaming red hot for the last 15 minutes. Thank you for recognizing me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, to item 4.1 that Councillor Wilson raised, I too, a longtime pet owner and lover of both dogs and cats. And this is the Provincial Animal Welfare Services Act. The acronym, very appropriately, is the PAWS Act. And this is most specifically about that dogs that are kept outdoors can be kept outdoors, but it's a matter of care, proper care, how to tether them, how long to tether them, the use of pens that enclose them possibly from other wandering animals in the neighborhood, whatever the case might be. So if I could ask a further question through you to our Municipal Law Enforcement Director, Monica Sorello, as well, please. Monica, you said this was under the Solicitor General and through the Provincial Agency of the Animal Welfare Services to report any acts of cruelty that may occur. And of course, we have our SPCA that works collaboratively with our Animal Welfare and Control Department. But if a resident happens to see an animal in distress that's been tethered too long, whatever the issue might be, I'm sure the first approach will be to our local animal control department. So maybe you can help further with process when your staff do get those inquiries, how you would forward them on to the provincial body. Through you, Mr. Mayor, please, for public edification.
Thank you.
Through the mayor to the councillor, again, Monica Cirillo, Director of Licensing and Bylaw Services. Councillor Jackson, thank you for the question. If our team did receive a complaint or something from the public that said an animal was in distress, we would certainly respond, and we would also get in touch with PAWS. And it's important to know that our operation is 24/7, 365, as is the Ontario Animal Protection Call Center, so the provincial counterpart.
That's great news, Monica. And Mr. Mayor, as you know, as former chair of the Police Services Board, we often got these correspondences at that level as well, which if the cruelty reached a certain level, that police services were required to help the SPCA. We're always there to support them as well. So again, as a lover of animals, I'm glad to see the increased legislation to protect our pets and our animals in our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pauls, second time.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll leave my question for the public health session, but I do have one maybe for our city manager or Mike Sergara. The question is, people want to know, are we putting money on reserve? How much it's going to cost the city?
Okay, so I'm gonna rule you out of order at this point because you're revisiting an issue that council has decided. With all due respect, you have a motion coming up on the 18th that deals with some of those issues. Council has not directed staff or anyone else to deal with those issues. So I'm going to rule you out of order at this point unless you have a reconsideration motion, which could properly be put by those that voted in the affirmative. In the absence of that, we're not going to revisit this issue in this context.
Well, in communication, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Under communication 4.7, we have emails of citizens of Hamilton that are requesting some questions about the cost. So I'm just asking, do we have a reserve put away? I think it's legit.
And clearly we do not, and because council hasn't directed any issues in terms of cost at this point in time. You have a motion coming up on the 18th that may be addressed at that point.
Okay, so I hope on the 18th, most councils will be there and will be able to understand that the city of Hamilton wants to be transparent. They need to know how much it's going to cost the city of Hamilton.
Thank you.
So I hope everybody will be there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other issues on communications? Not seeing any. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? As amended with the additional vote to abstain. And a thumbs up from Councillor Powers, I assume. I should not assume. Councillor Powers, you'll let me know. And that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Wilson, a motion to move into committee of the whole, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm having some difficulty with my the motion of my mouse. It's not responding. That council move into committee of the whole to consider the committee reports, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor? Vote is up. And was it a thumbs up from Councillor Powers? It is. Thank you. Thank you. And that's carried. And to the Board of Health, item 5.1, Councillor Wilson again, a motion to put item 5.1 on the floor, please.
That Board of Health Report 22-005 being the meeting held on Monday, May 2nd, 2022 be received. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Vanderbeek.
Thank you very much. And on the Board of Health report, any comments or questions? Thumbs up. I don't have a vote on that yet. Any comments or questions? Not seeing anything in the chat. Councillor Pauls?
Thank you.
And Councillor Jackson as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I put my speaker on. I just wanted to ask, first of all, is Dr. Elizabeth here?
I'm not sure. Let's ask. We'll have somebody from Public Health here to answer the question.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to know, I know U.S. regulators restricted the J&J COVID-19 vaccine. It was just published May 5th on CP24. I just saw it. And it said, because due to clot risk. I want to ask Public Health, we are suggesting they get the J&J because it's a one-shot deal. Is that true, or and what are your thoughts about that?
Thank you.
Forcing people to get something that maybe they cannot, because I don't know everybody's health. Everybody takes their own health and their own risk. So I don't know why some people cannot take the J&J. But if that's true, that U.S. restricted
the question.
J&J.
So back to the question. What was the question again?
The question was, are we forcing people to take the J&J?
Okay, we're not. That's not. I don't think that's an appropriate question.
Well, it is because I heard.
No, it isn't. It isn't an appropriate question.
Okay.
So
can I ask you in another way?
If you want to have the efficacy of the J&J, vaccine, and you want to ask our staff about that, that's appropriate. Okay. But let's not make editorial comments on that because that's unfair. Okay. And I'm not going to let our staff answer editorial comments.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. And I always, I always respect you. I always have, and I always will. But I'm just asking, I heard that we're setting up a clinic for the people that are not vaccinated so that they could get one-shot deal. So I'm asking you the question, are we doing that?
Thank you. And that's not done through public health, that's done through HR. And so this is that's not a public health question. So is someone here from public health that could address the J&J, vaccine? Michelle, thank you. If you would, just give us your understanding and knowledge of that vaccine.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm not able to speak to the U.S. approval or not of J&J. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine in Canada continues to be Health Canada approved. It is a single-dose vaccine. For us, it's not a preferred vaccine. The preferred vaccines, of course, are the mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna. However, Novavax, which is another vaccine, 2-dose as well as the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, are Health Canada approved vaccines, and we offer Health Canada approved vaccines in our clinics.
Thank you. Councillor Pauls.
Yes, so is HR then setting up on the 17th, before my motion, the setting where people could get their J&J. I just want to,
What does your motion got to do with that?
well, the motion is we want to make sure the cost, we want to make sure people
Okay,
are.
all right, so let's not refer to something that isn't on the table at the moment.
Okay.
So back to HR. HR is doing everything they can to make available for folks, and as they have done since the policy was enacted about 6 months ago, to give people the opportunity to get vaccinated. So through to Laura. Laura, the question was, are we making accommodations to help people get vaccinated?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Indeed, we are. We have been working with our public health partners to make available other clinics to provide the J&J in this example. May 17th would be the last day in order to fulfill the 14-day waiting period. But indeed, we have been doing everything that we can to accommodate employees in getting vaccinated prior to the May 31st deadline. So the J&J is a one dose. It would fulfill the requirements to be fully vaccinated by May 31st, and that is one of the reasons why we offer the clinics.
Thank you. Councillor Pauls.
Thank you. A few words you said that were very interesting to me. We are accommodating, we're helping, we're helping these unvaccinated people get vaccinated. How are we helping when we say that somebody that just had their Pfizer and has to wait till June 5th, we're still terminating? Are we accommodating them?
Thank you. Again, that's a policy direction that was set by council. Unless you have a motion to reconsider, I'm gonna rule your question out of order.
We are a city of inclusive. I don't understand this. It's
Okay.
just
All right. So
understandable.
your desire is to debate this issue.
No, my desire is to
I'm going to
accommodate.
I'm going to call you out of order, and if you continue on, I'm going to go to somebody else, and I'm going to have your microphone turned off. You have an opportunity to debate this issue previously. You have another opportunity to debate your motion on the 18th. We will proceed on that basis, but I'm not going to have you questioning our staff in this manner based on a direction approved by council. Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And I support your lifting the emergency order declaration that's been in place for 2 years on our city. Thank you for doing that the other day. And maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, I think all of council and our support staff recently received some positive communication about return in-person meetings to the council chambers. And if possibly for public consumption, either our EOC Director Thorne or City Manager Smith or HR Executive Director Fontana, one of them can share with us the public email that they sent to council offices, the mayor's office, and support staff of council chambers reopening, council meetings in person again, and further access for the public. Mr. Mayor, that's the essence of my question, please.
Okay, thank you. And to EOC Director Thorne, who, by the way, has done a terrific job through this entire process. So we could, at this moment, probably say that's been a very difficult, challenging process. The EOC, which is every senior leader in our organization, has come together on a regular basis to provide guidance and assistance, and they've done a terrific job. I'm sure you will all agree. And Jason, after Paul Johnson has led the way and has done an admirable job. So thank you for all that great work on that preamble. So now to the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for those kind words to the team at the EOC as well. So I'm Jason Thorne. I'm the General Manager of Planning and Economic Development, and as the Mayor noted, I'm also the EOC Director. So yes, we issued a number of communications yesterday to Council and to the public, and included within that was a communication around the shift to hybrid council meetings, starting with the May 25th council meeting will be the first council meeting that will be in hybrid, and followed the week of May 30th with the standing committees. So that May 30th week will be the first cycle of standing committees that will be available to meet in person. Similarly, other advisory committees will be able to begin to meet in a hybrid manner starting that week of the 30th, although we haven't determined specific dates for each advisory committee yet. Some of that will depend on the capacity of clerks to provide the support and having the technology in place. Similarly, we also indicated yesterday that up until now, we have not been doing sort of city-hosted public meetings and public information centers with any in-person options. So starting that week as well, we'll be able to resume having those as either in-person or hybrid. And that includes things that members of council and the public be aware of, where we will do pre-COVID public information centers, public town hall meetings, those sorts of city-hosted events as part of consultation on some of our city policy initiatives. The mayor also did communicate yesterday that the emergency declaration has been lifted in the city of Hamilton, although, and just to clarify with the effect of the Emergency Operations Center, the Emergency Operations Center is remaining mobilized. So the EOC is still in place, although we're shifting more towards a monitoring role. We'll be monitoring the COVID situation in the city. We will continue to kind of liaise with our public health colleagues and meet as required to monitor the situation and just remain in that mobilized form so that we can be at the ready if the situation changes and the EOC needs to take any further actions with respect to city services or facilities. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, EOC and EOC Director Thorne and General Manager. And thank you for getting back to my office regarding the back doors. I was in the last few days to my office, and I saw where staff were just coming and going with the back doors open as well. So, and use of the elevators. So again, now, just to clarify, Jason, because I think the last update you gave us was about 10 days ago on the improved and increased access to City Hall itself for the public. Again, is all available floors now? Somebody wants to file an application for a building permit, planning application, whatever. Are all floors and the elevators now open as of this moment? Could you just clarify that? That's my last question, Mr. Mayor, please.
Thank you.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. So all of the doors at City Hall are open as they were pre-COVID, and similarly, any of the floors that were previously open to the public, the service counters on those floors are all reopened, offering their normal range of services and the normal business hours.
Fantastic, EOC Director. Mr. Mayor, I'll be in soon to take the Windex and a towel to wipe my chair down. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very nice. Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question of clarification. I listened carefully to public health and HR. I need to understand if an employee with the city of Hamilton has doctor direction to get an mRNA vaccine, not the J&J, and they're following that direction and they can't get the second dose until after the end of this month. Is HR making accommodation for that type of situation?
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Laura Fontana, Executive Director of Human Resources. Yes, Councillor, we are accommodating those circumstances under a medical exemption. We're managing those situations on a case-by-case basis. We have an individual that is unable to get another vaccine and requires the mRNA vaccine and isn't able to fulfill that time requirement. Again, we're managing it on a case-by-case basis, and it would be a medical exemption for that period of time.
Thank you, Ms. Fontana. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That makes me breathe a lot easier. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Councillor Pauls.
I just want to make a comment. I love being in council. I really enjoy all my colleagues. But the last time I asked a question, I had one of the councilors say, "Oh my God." And yes, oh my God. And I found it insulting because we're talking about human beings. That's all I want to say. So let's respect each other. And like I always have, let's give grace where maybe you don't see grace, because that's what we're about. We're about human beings helping each other. The city of Hamilton being the best place to live. encourage helping the homeless out there. Our heart should be breaking. Helping the people that can't afford a house, person with mental health. That's who we are. We
I
are
respect
people,
you,
listen,
Councillor.
we are people that care. So when you call people, employees, anti-vaxxers, you call them names.
Okay, now you're going at it again. So I'm going to call you out of order one more time. Now, so I respect you, but you need to respect the process. And you're out of order. And you're out of order on many occasions because you have one issue. You have one issue on your mind, and that's all you want to discuss. I respect you. I respect everyone on council. I'm more than happy and ready to address those issues in the appropriate location and the appropriate format. And yes, it's unfortunate that anyone would have made a commentary, but the reality is that these are passionate issues that we all are facing. We're all struggling with. You're not alone in struggling on those issues. We're all facing those challenges. So you're speaking to the choir in that sense. So let's respect the process. Thank you. Point of order. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name was referenced. Just for the record, my mic was not live, and I said no such thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea. So, commentary of that sort obviously isn't appropriate. So let's put that aside. But also let's continue to respect the process. So we are now on the Board of Health report. Any additional questions on the Board of Health report relative to COVID? Not seeing any. Thank you. So a motion to approve the report as presented would be appropriate. That was moved by Councillor Wilson and seconded by I can't remember who, but the clerk has that. And the vote will be up shortly. And, I didn't see a vote come up. Did we already vote?
The vote is up, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, it's not up on my screen, unfortunately. So thumbs up from me, and I'll do an F5 reboot.
Mr. Mayor, we do have your vote.
Okay. Yeah. Telepathic, I guess. That's great. Thank you.
That carries 13-0.
Thank you very much. Item 5.2, Public Works Committee report. Could I have a motion to receive and approve the recommendation within the Board of Public Works by, doesn't tell me who's the chair at the moment, Councillor Nand, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we've got you.
Excellent. Oof. Okay, so moved by myself and seconded by Vice Chair Councillor Powers that the Public Works Committee Report 22-007, being the meeting that was held on Monday, May 2nd, be received, and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on any items in the Public Works report? Not seeing an indication, nothing in the chat. Councillor Jackson? Sorry, there you are. Okay, just popped up. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. On item 3, just want to again thank this term of council, the Kenilworth Reservoir soil removal and east cell upgrades. This is the recommendation that came from Public Works by an overwhelming majority vote. It wasn't unanimous, by an overwhelming majority vote, to expend another $400,000 in light of what the consultants have discovered there in all the contaminated soil removal around that big structure that hundreds, if not thousands, of people over the years passed by on the Kenilworth going up and down to Councillor Marula's ward and back up to my area. They see that big structure. They probably have wondered for years what that building is. It's the water reservoir that services the entire mountain community with pristine Hamilton safe, healthy water. And I'm just so grateful that of the options chosen, we chose to spend the money to remove the contaminated soil. It's being all trucked out safely. And we heard from staff that hopefully by no later than the end of this year, it all should be removed and any worries for the future should be removed. This is just an additional amount that was needed in light of what the consultants and the contractor discovered. Very supportive. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any other comments on that item or any other? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is item 5 on the Public Works Committee joint action by the City of Hamilton, and Hamilton Police Services to improve pedestrian safety. First, it's a question. Does the police service still have, I think they had hired 8 officers and they were going to create a traffic specific kind of division, Mr. Mayor. Can one of the police service board members advise me if that's still happening?
It was absolutely created while I was there, and Councillor Jackson, I think, can confirm where they're at now. Councillor Jackson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Clark. It started a year ago with 8 new hired officers specifically for a new traffic safety unit, and I believe it's up to around 18 to 20 officers now in light of this past budget.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jackson, for that report. Can I ask, Mr. Mayor, and I don't know if this is appropriate, is it possible to receive an annualized report from this traffic division that would indicate what they have been doing, in essence, we know where the issues are in the city, but candidly, sir, I hear all the time from residents, we never see a police officer. Now, I know we don't have enough police officers to make sure everyone sees one every day, but it would be nice to get some type of report that says, in Ward 9 on Mud Street, on Rymel, this many traffic violations were issued last year, or something to that effect, so that we have a good understanding about the types of enforcement that is occurring. Most people, simply because they're not there when the enforcement happens, they don't see it, sir.
Yep, thank you. It's certainly a question that can be asked of Police Services Board. I think you can put that in kind of motion form if you'd like. Councillor Jackson, any response on that in terms of what reporting is done right now?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Clark. I know that, for example, last year, the chief issued that there was something like 12,000 additional tickets that were issued in the community over the year before. And Councillor Clark, if you would leave it with me as one of your appointees on the Police Services Board after today's meeting, I will approach the chief with what the request was, and I'm sure it would be for across all wards of the city, if we can get some kind of detailed data as to when the officers have been there and or what the the number of infractions have been given per ward. If there's a reason why extreme details can't be given, I'm sure the chief can explain that. So if you would leave that in my purview, Councillor Clark, I will ensure council gets some information back from the chief. Thank you.
I sincerely thank you, Councillor Jackson, for volunteering to do that. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the latitude.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nan.
On a different item, so did you want to exhaust this item?
Yeah, I want to ask for any additional. I assumed it was the same item, but I don't know that. Councillor Danko, I know is. So Councillor Danko, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to further to Councillor Clark's question, the Hamilton Police Services and our traffic staff, along with both the school boards, work through the City of Hamilton Strategic Road Safety Committee. So there are regular discussions about enforcement and where that enforcement is and the police operations. And part of this direction is reporting back on some of those discussions through the Strategic Road Safety Committee. So understanding that that is something that we would like to see a bit more information on, and that is part of the direction. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And your audio, for future reference is a little low. If you can find a way of bumping it up, if it's possible. We would hear you much better, or we'd strain less, I guess. I have to listen closely, but thank you for that. Appreciate it. Councillor Nant, different item? Same
different
item. Councillor Ferguson?
Yes, same item.
Okay, thank you. Item 5.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to make a comment after the last the last budget presentation by the chief undertook to provide ward councillors with crime statistics, and I get that monthly, and it is very helpful. I use it when I speak in the community, take 2 or 3 slides out of it. But the interesting part, I don't know what's happening in other wards, but in Ancaster, there's been a significant reduction in the amount of crimes, whether it's breaking into homes, theft of autos, theft of materials from autos. All those statistics are laid out. And then they draw a trend line, and the trend line is down exponentially. So I just want to publicly thank the Hamilton Police Service for providing that to us so I can communicate it back to my community. But also I think the work they're doing in our community has gone very well. So congratulations to them. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nan, different item.
Thank you, Mayor. It's on item 7. I just wanted to thank Public Work Committee members for unanimous support on this, hoping for that ratification today as well. And again, just publicly wanted to recognize the Arkells and all of the donations that they were able to bring together with the vision of making sure making a legacy contribution, quite frankly, creating a destination level professional public basketball court that people can come outside and enjoy, which will be housed now in Woodlands Park. And in recognition for their fundraising effort of $80,000, enabling this investment without it costing a dime to taxpayers, and bringing together the Ron Foxcroft Family Foundation, the Nick Nurse Foundation, Superfan Nav, as well as Mark Bartlett, CEO of Canada Basketball, who also provided some lead consultancy on the specs of the project. I also wanted to take a moment to, so on that note, the motion basically has the multi-court renamed in honor of the rally, which, instead of being the name of an individual, is, I think, the spirit that the Arkells, our beloved Hamilton band, evoke over and over again, not only through their social media shout outs to people who are doing good work in the community, but also through their efforts of fundraising, with each dollar of tickets sold for the Hamilton concert going towards affordable housing, having record attendance at the stadium for an outdoor concert, having the largest audience we've ever had in Hamilton for a concert at the stadium, and poised to repeat that this summer as well. So the Rally Court is going to be home at the Woodlands Park, and it was my absolute honor and privilege to collaborate with the band and make this happen. I also wanted to take a moment publicly to thank city staff. We had project manager Kevin Carnago and manager Kara Bunn who shepherded the partnership, as well as worked through those spec changes that needed to happen in order to make this destination basketball court a reality. And once it's open, hopefully right in time for that rally concert at Tim Hortons Field in June, challenging any of you to a game at 21. Thanks.
I'm in. I'm good at it. I've run 21 from 0 to 21 7 times in my life, so I take the challenge.
Sweet.
Yes, thank you. I'll be there with bells on. Thanks, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank Councillor Ferguson for reminding us about that crime report. To Councillor Jackson, that's the kind of thing I kind of envisioned for traffic. So you almost can mimic it. This is, a similar report, not specifics. We don't need to know who gets charged, but if we knew how many people were stunt racing, for example, how many charges there, et cetera, that's the type of thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ferguson, for that reminder.
Statistical information, I think, is what you're looking for, which I think is always helpful for all of us. More data gives us better informed decision making. So the more we have, the better off we are. All right, for no further comments on any of the items, unless I've missed someone, please wave, scream, yell, indicate otherwise. No, all good. So on the Public Works agenda, moved and seconded, all in favor? And thumbs up from Councillor Powers, thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much. The Planning Committee report, Councillor Ferguson, a motion to put it on the floor, please.
Yeah, thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brenda Johnson, that the Planning Committee report, being the meeting held on Tuesday, May the 3rd, 2022, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Okay, thank you. We had a number of indications of conflict, so I propose that we deal with those first up. in terms of items 5, 6, and 9. So if there's any discussion on item 5, please indicate. And if there isn't, then I will ask for a separate vote on item 5. So I see no indication of that. So here we go. Councillor Clark can indicate your conflict, and you can vote in the affirmative or negative. And it will do the same for items 6 and 9. And again, if there's anyone, thumbs up from Councillor Powers, that wants to address either of those issues, do indicate through clerks. Just waiting for the vote to finalize.
Mr. Mayor, we're just waiting on Councillors Nan and Pauls.
Okay. And given that I can't see a screen right now, we might need to hear a verbal yay or nay or a vote electronically. I can see Councillor Nan. Are you able to vote? There we go. Okay. That's carried. Thank you very much. Then on item 6 of that report, any comments or questions on the item itself? Not seeing any. Thank you. If you'll put up that vote then, thanks. Again, conflicts can be identified. And all are able to vote. Thank you. That's carried. And on item 9, again, I'll ask if there's any comments or questions or indications of interest in item 9. If not, we'll go to a vote. And put the vote up. It is up. And thumbs up from Councillor Powers. And that's carried as well. On the balance of the report, any items in the report that members of council would like to address? Okay, again, I'm not seeing a screen, so I'm not sure who's up. I don't see anything in the chat. So then on the balance of the report as presented and amended, all in favor? Thumbs up from Councillor Powers.
Councillor Partridge is here. We're just amending the attendance.
Okay. Thank you. And the vote is up.
Councillor Partridge, would you like to give a verbal for your vote?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you very much. I'm in support.
Thank you.
You. Okay, that's carried. And that's that report. We'll go to the General Issues Committee report. And Councillor Wilson on report number of May the 4th. A motion to put it on the floor, please.
Thank you. That the General Issues Committee Report 22-009, being the meeting held on Wednesday, May 4th, 2022, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pearson, if she's here.
And she is. Thank you. Any comments or questions or any items in that report that folks would like to address? I see some hands popping up. Councillor Fergus, I saw you first, and then please indicate to the clerks which item.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to be recorded as opposed to item 6. So can I just oppose the whole report and that does it, or should we have a separate vote on item 6? This
No,
is the closing.
if you want to support the other items, then we need a separate vote. Yeah.
Okay, so I just opposed to the closing of King Street between the Gore and the Engaged Park.
All right, we can ask for a separate vote on that right now. If there, so let's assume we're on item 6. Any comments or questions on item 6? Councillor Clark, and then maybe myself. I do see Councillor Pauls as well. That was ahead of you, Councillor Clark. My apologies. So, Councillor Pauls.
Thank you. I just want to 12.2 J number 2.
Okay,
I want to ask a question.
respectfully interrupt you for a second. So we're on item 6. I'll get
no,
back to you on that one.
No,
I just wanted to finish item 6.
Okay, sorry.
Clear the vote up on that, and then I'll come back to you on that other item. Councillor Clark on this item 6.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So item G, it was added as an amendment to this motion in our discussions at GIC. And it says prior to the implementation of open streets, we provide an opportunity for direct resident engagement. Can I ask, how will this come back to GIC? Is it coming back as here's what we found from our stakeholders, our residents, and here's the recommendation on how we implement or not implement? It's coming back for a final decision is what I'm asking.
Yeah, thank you. I think Chris Hurstag was the lead. I'm not sure if Chris is here. Let's ask. Oh, look at that.
Brian Hollingworth,
Brian,
Director of Transportation Planning and Parking. We will take direction of council on this, but as per the addition of item G, we're going to conduct the engagement using hopefully Engage Hamilton. We could bring it back as an information report to GIC and then be directed accordingly. That's probably maybe the best option. Or we could bring it back as, I think an information report might be appropriate. But we'll take council's direction on this.
So can I ask for some clarification, Mr. Mayor, then? Are we approving this 4-kilometer linear urban park today, that it will happen sometime in 2022? And we're engaging the stakeholders and the public that this is going to be happening, as opposed to getting their thoughts before we make the final decision?
Thank you. Brian?
We took it as endorsement to proceed with the pilot in 2022. I guess pending feedback from the public, and if we do bring back an information report, as discussed, we could, as I suggested in the GIC meeting, look at an off-ramp if we determine that things just aren't going to be workable. There are other issues such as transit rerouting, emergency services access, traffic, all which have to be looked at as part of the process.
So, Mr. Mayor, I heard that they took it that this is an endorsement to proceed with the pilot in 2022. And if we're not communicating or engaging the public prior to that decision, then I'll be offside on this. I think it sends the wrong message if we're making the decision to move forward with the pilot and we're simply informing the public and reporting back. Rather, it should be an engaging of the public prior to making the decision. So I'll just vote accordingly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I have myself on this item. So if I could ask Councillor Wilson to take the chair for a moment. And, I guess my interpretation is a little different than Brian. So, I very much would like to have this happen. But I at the same time, also understand that there are a number of things that have to be sorted out to make it successful. And we want it to be successful. So, safety issues, road closures, numerous things that need to be sorted out before I think we make a final decision. So the way I presented it was that we're endorsing the concept as an opportunity to have a look at, how we can make that happen. It has to go through the entire seat process. That may identify some barriers that might make it too difficult to do between now and then. But the concept itself has worked and has been successful in many other communities. So I think I don't disagree with Councillor Clark that I'd sooner have some engagement done, and I'd sooner have some of the seat work sorted through so that we completely understand the challenges, the costs, and the opportunities that come out of this before we make a final decision on a go forward date. And so I would ask, again, through you to Brian, certainly that's the way I envisioned it. I very much like this to happen, but I also very much want to make sure that we do kind of robust engagement with businesses along the corridor, with residents along the corridor, as well as the broader community in terms of understanding and appreciating what the value of this is going forward. So through you to Brian or to Jason, I think that that direction I think is more appropriate in my mind than just just that we have decided that we're doing it, and it's just a matter of picking a date.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, and I'll let Brian add anything. I think if that is the will of council, it would be helpful to staff to make that explicit, and I would suggest that might be then an amendment to that last item in the motion around doing the consultation prior to implementation, and add a report back as part of that, just so staff is clear what council's expectations are prior to implementation.
And as the mover of the motion, I'd be happy to include that. If Councillor Clark would like to second that as part of the item G. Councillor Clark, you good with that?
Yes, but I don't have the wording that is being proposed. So it comes back to GIC and council for approval. Is that the wording?
Yes.
I'm fine with that, sir. And I really appreciate you doing that.
No problem. I'll take that as an amendment. On this item still, I saw some waving of hands, so I'm off. I see Councillor Partridge and then Councillor Ferguson once again. Councillor Partridge.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And General Manager Thorne did address, I was going to speak to G and just say, to me, it very clearly says that prior to the implementation of any open streets, temporary linear urban park, that staff be directed, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm supportive of the amendment and supportive of the entire item number 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Sure, if that amendment carries, then I don't need a separate vote. This also
Can't quite hear you. You may not have your microphone down or volume up, or I'm not sure which.
Yeah, I was having an apple this morning snack. So if this amendment carries, then I don't need a separate vote on it. I'll support it then.
Okay, thank you. So there is an amendment. So sorry, Councillor Wilson, I made an amendment. You need to follow through on seeing us through to a vote on that one. So I'll leave that in your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's an amendment on the floor. I think the council, Mayor Eisenberger has articulated it clearly. And so we would vote on the amendment and then the motion as amended. Thank you.
Yep.
So, Mr. Mayor and Deputy Mayor Wilson, we are putting the amendment on the floor for vote now.
Yes, thank you.
That carries 14-0.
Thank you. I'll take the chair back, and then we're dealing with item 6 as amended. If we could just cover that one off. Yeah, we don't need a separate vote now that Councillor Ferguson's indicated. So pass on that. We've got that covered. Councillor Pauls, you had a different item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've been getting a lot of emails, even just now, from people that I really don't know. They want to know the procedure, and I was wondering if I could ask the clerk or whoever can answer about notices of motion. What do they mean? They don't understand when a notice of motion
is this an item in the?
Yeah, it's an item 12.2.
General issues?
When we voted to not waive the motion, they want to know, has it ever, I just want the clerk to clarify how it.
I need to be clear. Item 12 on this agenda is update on the recent Ontario Land Tribunal.
12?
Not item 12.2. We're still in the General Issues Committee report.
Right, 12.2J double I.
Sorry. In the General Issues Committee report?
Yes. It was, I just wanted clarification because honestly, people don't understand sometimes procedural, what we do. So I would like either the clerk or someone to explain what a waive of motion means. Could I have the clerk explain? Because I'm going back and forth to people explaining that sometimes has to be a waive of motion because it was too late and council needs to vote on that. And they want it, and some of the question, has it ever been turned down?
Okay, I'm interesting question. Anyone on staff answer that? Clerks, Madam Clerk, could you answer the question in terms of waiving of notice?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So when an item is placed on the agenda under notice of motion,
No.
in order for that notice of motion to be considered, there has to be a waiving of the rules with 2/3 under the procedural bylaw in order for that motion to be put on the floor for voting. If the notice of motion and the waiving of the rules fails, given that the voting does not receive 2/3, that notice of motion becomes a motion on the next agenda, which is happening with item 12.2, because that did not receive its 2/3 at GIC. So that will be coming forward as a motion on the 18th next week. So it'll take a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor for voting. Councillor Pauls, I would be happy to have Janet send you some wording that you can respond to any questions you receive on that, if that helps.
Yes, of course, I understand it, but I think it took me a while, even being in council when I first started, what it really meant. I caught on, but a lot of people in the public don't understand. My question is, has it been many times that a notice of motion being not passed?
I don't think our staff can answer that off the top of the head. So
I asked
we can
around
ask
that
our
it's
staff
very
to
rare.
report back to you.
I don't want to get in an argument. I'm really tired today. I just want to say that I would always vote yes for waiving of the motion. And in the 4 years that I've been in council, I've always voted that way, and so is everybody else, everyone else, unanimously, because especially when it's concerning people's life. And I know today Councilor Marula and Councilor Wilson have a motion, a notice of motion, and I will be gladly support that because it's important. What Councilor Wilson and Councilor Nan is putting is a very important issue. And I would never vote against that, against any of those type of motion. So I just want to say that I was surprised last time. It took me back thinking, why was it defeated? And people are asking me, honestly, you don't believe me, but I have emails constantly, text message constantly about issues and governance. So I really appreciate the answer.
Yep.
And thank you, Andrea. And if you could send me a statement that I could send to all of the people that have asked me. But I want to thank you, colleagues. And I will always, honestly, especially the notice of motion, whether I agree with the motion or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I see a question, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is on item 10 of the GIC, which is the election compliance audit committee. Can I ask the clerk through you, Mr. Mayor, to explain the process on these recommendations and what the council's role is in election readiness or any of the decisions as it pertains to the Municipal Election Act.
Thank you. Clerk Holland.
Through the mayor. So council is required to create the compliance audit committee, the election compliance audit committee every term. So what is within this report, and I hope I can get all your questions. So the establishment of the committee is under council. Within the report, what happened in 2018 is a selection audit committee was struck, and the membership was staff, and staff did all the interviews and brought forward recommendations for council to approve. That was the previous process. Within the recommendations of the report that came forward to GIC, the change was that it would still be staff doing the interviews, but that staff would also be delegated the authority to do the selection. The election compliance audit committee is required to meet within 30 days of a complaint coming forward. When we looked at the calendar, there are gaps in meetings between council, so it created a bit of difficulty trying to get new appointees in should anybody resign from the committee. So that's why the recommendation came forward, to make sure that we'd be able to get a full 5 people. That's what's in the terms of reference, that we have 5 members on the election compliance audit committee, and we want to make sure that we have 5 people at all times in order to receive and consider any complaints coming forward.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Supplementary. So to be clear, this committee that is being struck by this, it's the city clerk and city auditor and general manager who will be delegated to appoint the members or the citizens who will serve on the election compliant audit committee. It is not a decision of this council, correct?
Through the mayor, yes, that is the change that we're putting forward.
Thank you. And the rest of the management and administration of the election, the council again plays no role in how the election is managed or administered. It's completely through the clerk's office, and I would assume they have an election office as this gets closer.
Through the mayor, yes, there are certain decisions regarding the election that council makes. Council approves the budget, council approves the methods of voting, and council strikes the election compliance audit committee. But as far as the day-to-day, that is done through the office of the city clerk.
Thank you for that, Madam Clerk. And it's important, Mr. Mayor, because we need to make sure that the public understands that the election is not run by the council. We have no way of interfering in the election process. The clerk is making these decisions, and we are complying with the Election Act. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I have received comments and emails from people indicating that council is making these decisions, and we're not involved. We can't be involved as per the Municipal Election Act. I thought it was important that we clarify that, sir.
Through the mayor, I just want to add.
Appreciate that.
Sorry, through the mayor, I just want to add further clarification that council also approves the sign bylaw, and council also approves the use of corporate resources policy.
And the use of corporate resources is specific to the election.
It's during the election period, yes.
So that you have the budget, the ways and means to do what you need to do.
Correct.
Thank you. It's just
also,
important.
Sorry, the use of corporate resources also outlines the restrictions between that election period for anybody running in a municipal, provincial, or federal election.
Yeah, these are all important things to know, so that as we get into that silly season of an election, everyone understands very clearly and transparently what what the rules are and what the role is and responsibility is of council and what the role is and responsibility of the clerk in the city. Thank you, sir.
And just to
Good
also
points. Thank
add,
you.
all of the,
Appreciate that.
sorry, Mr. Mayor, all the election information is available on the website at hamilton.ca/elections.
Thank you. And, that'll be well promoted to anyone that's considering being a candidate. Be aware of the rules and make sure you follow them. All right, thank you. On the General Issues Committee report, I see no further comments or requests on items. So, well, on the balance of the report then, all in favor? And Councillor Powers, thumbs up, I think. And anyone else need to do a verbal vote? Everybody's able? Madam Clerk, are you capturing the votes?
We're just waiting on Councillor Paul's votes.
Okay, thank you. Is Councillor Paul still on the screen?
We don't see her on the list of attendees, so we will mark her as absent for the vote. Carries 13-0.
Thank you. And that lends us to the Emergency Community Services Committee report. Councillor Clark, a motion, please, to put it on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Emergency and Community Services Committee Report 22-007. It's moved by myself and seconded by our Vice Chair, Councillor Samarula, that the Emergency and Community Services Committee Report 22-007, being the meeting held on Thursday, May 5th, 2022, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on this report? Councillor Nan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on item 1, and I wanted to take a moment as I wasn't able to attend Emergency Community Services Committee meeting due to an appointment that couldn't be rescheduled for my mom. I just wanted to say thank you to the staff as well as the consultants for their excellent work being done in the process of our landmarks and monuments review. The direction that was passed by committee reinforces the importance of how a municipality creates and names monuments, while also creating a pathway to allow next generations to shape the world around them in a way that honors humanity. And the recommendations are so clearly indicating the direction forward at the same time as deeply honoring the circle of elders and centering the voices of those who've been historically dehumanized. So I really do appreciate the work and am proud of the municipality moving forward in this journey this way, and look forward to the future recommendations once these pieces are enacted. Thank you.
Great, thank you for those good comments. Any other comments on this item or any other? Not seeing any, so it's been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Marula. All in favor of the balance of the report? Madam Clerk, any votes you need to capture? I think Councillor Powers is thumbs up, I believe. I thought I saw it stroll by.
We have them all.
Okay, thank you. And that's carried, and we are now at rising from Committee of the Whole. Councillor Wilson, I saw you running the other way, but you ran back. So to you, a motion to rise from Committee of the Whole, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for that. That the Committee of the Whole rise and report, please. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Nan.
Well said. Any comments on that? If not, motion to approve. And thumbs up from Councillor Powers.
That carries 13-0.
Thank you very much. We are now at the motions, and Councillor Merle, you have a motion. Item 7.2, safety enhancements to, no, not that one.
First, it's reaffirming council's position from 2013. The first part of this is the waiving, that the rules of order be waived to allow for the introduction of a motion respecting reaffirming council's position on the amendments required to the Highway Traffic Act to include right-of-way legislation for pedestrians.
Okay. So no concern regarding waiving of the rules. Not seeing any, so a vote on waiving of the rules is appropriate. We'll put that up.
We could just get a seconder, Mr. Mayor, please.
Councillor Danko, thank you. And the vote is up. And thumbs up from Councillor Powers. I shouldn't assume that. There it is. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question of staff, please, Mr. Mayor?
On this item or waiving of the rules?
Yes. Oh, no, on the item, not the waiving of the rules. Sorry.
Okay, let's finish that vote, and I'll come to you after Councillor Marula puts forward his motion. I'll ask for any additional questions or comments.
Thank you. So, moved by myself.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, my apologies. So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Danko, whereas Council on November 13th, 2013 requested that the province of Ontario amend the Highway Traffic Act to include right-of-way legislation for pedestrians in order to create a complete streets environment. And whereas the City of Hamilton is currently seeing a high volume of accidents involving automobiles and pedestrians, therefore be it resolved that Council reaffirm their previous request for the province of Ontario to amend the Highway Traffic Act to include right-of-way legislation for pedestrians. And if I could just highlight a number of issues, Mr. Mayor, I've been fielding, and you have as well, calls from constituents, you longer than I actually, since 1995, in my case. In your case, since 1991. And I'm sure you can agree that the issues surrounding traffic, speed, pedestrian safety has really come to surface. And if you look back historically, which I have, I recall back in 2002, as an example, I brought forward the speed hump motion, and it took 10 years for the first speed hump to be implemented, and the question becomes why. And I spoke to a number of old timers from council, and it was because the bureaucracy was ingrained at the time with a car-centric mentality. So was the province, and so was the federal government, and so was all of the continent. So we acted and behaved accordingly. The pedestrian right-of-way was an issue that came to me in traveling to France. I thought it was more of a European thing until I returned in the 2000s to realize that other provinces in Canada have pedestrian right-of-ways as well. So then that begs the question, why does Ontario not have it? And back in 2013, I brought forward this motion based on the same arguments I'm presenting today, but without the same tragedies that are occurring today. And then you look at why things have changed so dramatically. It's because vehicles and the engineering behind them are superb. They're quieter, they're faster, they maneuver better. And because of all that, people behind the wheel are feeling omnipotent. And because of that, people around that vehicle are walking in landmines. So then you add intensification we've increased population in the inner city significantly. So then you have all of this money being spent on infrastructure as road diets. In my case, I threw all-day parking on Kenilworth and Ottawa, lowered the speed to 40 kilometers. I didn't have staff support for that. And that wasn't so long ago, just so you know. I had to politically drive that agenda forward because staff were just not supporting it. So you literally had to get 9 votes or the majority of committee to get any of these things forward. As an example, 40 kilometers an hour on Kenilworth or Ottawa, all-day parking on Kenilworth or Ottawa. So they called me Stop Sign Sam. I was mocked relentlessly for being Stop Sign Sam. Yes, I probably have the most stop signs in the ward, but you know what? Now people are talking about more stop signs. Now they're talking about how we can integrate them in today's world to make it safer for pedestrians. So every time I hear a new idea, I never ever question it any longer because I had a lot of great ideas that people mocked relentlessly that ended up becoming really great ideas ultimately when the rubber hits the road. No pun intended. So what's before us is something, and I say this and with a great deal of seriousness. If in 2013, had this been implemented, would it have saved lives? I don't know. But at the end of the day, if pedestrians are looked upon as second-class citizens in the middle of a concrete jungle with vehicles traveling at 100 kilometers an hour, we got a problem. We got a problem based on how we set our priorities. So what this does, it basically vocalizes that, yes, we believe that an individual walking down the street is more important than a 2,000-pound vehicle traveling at 100 kilometers an hour. It's ludicrous to suggest otherwise, and the fact that this hasn't changed is even more ludicrous. So this is the time. I'm supporting Councillor Wilson's motion. I think I have never seen a time that's so more perfect than to bring the pedestrian right-of-way issue to the forefront and use that as a pilot project. Imagine a reboot province-wide with a pilot project starting in Hamilton where we say every time you see a pedestrian on the sidewalk, you need to stop your vehicle because they need to cross. It would be a lovely world to live in and one we can work on if we all get on the same page. Appreciate your time, and thanks very much.
Thank you. And it's a culture in many communities across Canada, in fact, and certainly something that could be promoted. Councillor Ferguson, you are the first indicator, and I know we have a continuing list as well. Go ahead.
Thank you for that. And I do remember the motion asking for pedestrian right-of-ways. And I thought, and a question if I can to Mike Field or Brian Hollingworth, I thought the province did do that. And that's when we were able to finally put up pedestrian crossings with the flashing yellow lights. I have 3 on Wilson Street, and they're very effective, where the pedestrian just pushes the button and the traffic has to stop to allow the pedestrian to cross. And so did the province, my question to the staff is, did the province not already enact legislation giving the pedestrians the right of way by using those, I call them wigwam lights. They're the ones that are used in airports for the alternating flashing yellow lights, and to allow pedestrians the right of way in the event they want to cross a busy street.
Who do we have on deck here to Mike Field
or Brian Hollingworth? They probably,
Brian.
I know Mike Field looks after well, I see Edward here too. Yeah.
Edward Soldo. So Edward, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, good morning. Edward Soldo, Chief Road Official for the City of Hamilton. The purpose of right-of-way really is to separate different modes of traffic and make sure that not in the same place at the same time. The Highway Traffic Act only allows pedestrians to cross at designated locations, traffic signals, at stop signs, at school crossings where there's a crossing guard present, and at PXOs. So the Highway Traffic Act has not been changed to give priority to pedestrians. It is one of the only province that I am aware of where the car has the right of way, not the pedestrian, but it allows for pedestrians to cross at those designated locations.
So Edward, the PXO, that's the acronym I guess you use for the pedestrian crossings with the flashing lights. they were not, they're not new in the Highway Traffic Act, because we were never allowed to put them up until the province changed the Highway Traffic Act to permit them, and now they're very, very popular. That was a recent, after our motion, or Councillor Muno's motion back in 2013. Were they not? There was Highway Traffic Act not amended around that time to allow for these PXOs?
Thank you, Edward.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the councillor, the PXOs are just another form of traffic control where the pedestrians have right of way in that designated space. But overall, within the road network, pedestrians do not have the right of way. So it's just another form, being a traffic signal or a PXO, a pedestrian crossing. It was added in to allow for a greater flexibility and a different type of traffic control to allow them to cross within that designated space.
Are you telling us then in other provinces a pedestrian can simply stop on the sidewalk, turn, and step out the road, and traffic has to stop with no crosswalk at that location?
Yep. Edward?
Thank you. Through the mayor to the councillor, there is other provinces where the pedestrians are given the priority, not the vehicle, and that's the way that their highway traffic acts are actually written.
Okay, so they can mid-block, or where there's no ladder crossing, they can just step out anywhere they like. Traffic has to stop in other provinces?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I don't know the specifics of, say, BC or some of the Atlantic provinces, but there is some provinces where you just have to indicate that you're crossing the road as a pedestrian, and it's the obligation of the vehicle to stop. If you'd like a more detailed report, we can come back on that. But in Ontario, it is only at designated locations that pedestrians have the right of way.
Okay, because it just sounds dangerous. Someone can just step out the sidewalk, and a car is supposed to read his mind that he wants to cross the road and come to a stop. It just sounds dangerous. But because the PXOs work amazing and they're new, and I'm very happy with them in our community. And I thought that was a result of the 2013 motion, because it's only been since then that we started using these things. So I'm puzzled. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Danko?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How are my audio levels? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, better. Thank you.
Okay. Just want to thank Stop Sign Sam for bringing this forward. I always thought it was Stop Sign Tom, but perhaps we'd have to be calling him Speed Bump Jackson. Anyway, Councillor Marula is absolutely right. In Europe and other places in Canada where they do have right-of-way expectations for pedestrians, it's completely different. I experienced this personally on a trip through Europe, driving and having pedestrians like literally step off the sidewalk and decide that they wanted to cross the street. The first few times that it happened, it was a very big shock and a very steep learning curve, but you kind of immediately become to expect that you as a driver have a responsibility to watch for pedestrians, pay attention to the road in a much more intense way than you might otherwise, and to always make sure that you're prepared and ready to stop if a pedestrian is in the road right away. So and it is very similar in other parts of Canada, as has been stated. In driving in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, the attitude towards pedestrians is very different. And again, that comes back to the legislation that we have in Ontario and actually putting it into the Highway Traffic Act that pedestrians have priority in right of way. So I really appreciate Councillor Mula for reiterating this position and having the opportunity this term of council to reaffirm that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nant?
Yeah, very similar. Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank Councillor Muller for bringing this forward. I have to say, as somebody who grew up in a different province in British Columbia, it was very stark moving to Ontario and seeing pedestrians kind of always waving the car by, whereas back home, we're always waving the pedestrian through intersections and across roads and whatnot. Truly is a completely different culture on the roadways as pedestrians as a result of that. The sense of security, the sense of safety. You're still going to be cautious. You're still looking around. You're doing the right things as a pedestrian, but knowing that vehicles and drivers are ingrained with the concept that pedestrians have the right of way. So looking forward to hopefully seeing this province catch up to speed with other provinces across this country where we already recognize the right of citizens on the road as pedestrians. So thanks again, Councillor Marilla, for this one.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important for us when someone makes a statement, when we have information to validate it, we should do so. And to Councillor Marula, I was in a few meetings prior to 2000 where I can tell you that you weren't mocked, but it was a source of some chuckling around the table and calling you stop sign Sam. So I just wanted to say that he's not making that up. That happened. But he had to go for the tools that were available to him at the time, for him at the time, to try and do something to respond to what he was seeing in his neighborhoods and on the road. And in the absence of support for speed bumps and tightening corners and addressing radii, he had to use stop signs. And I always find it interesting that when people travel to Europe and they experience what life can be like there, and they enjoy it enormously, sometimes they balk at adopting those same measures here, but he didn't. And so I just wanted to say that what he experienced was absolutely right. And I appreciate the fact that he's been in this for the long haul, championing those efforts and those measures. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark. And then myself, actually, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe it's just coincidental. I suspect it's not, but in the last week, twice, I have seen drivers inching forward through a crosswalk while pedestrians are in the crosswalk. Like literally kind of pushing them out of the way, like I am turning this corner and you stop. And I just find that stunning that some people, and we need to stress that the vast majority of our residents, 85% of our residents, are following the rules. But it's that 15% that are putting people at risk, and it's that type of behavior. And so what Councillor Marula has been advocating for, I support. It makes complete sense that the pedestrians would have the right of way, and that those amendments should be made to the Highway Traffic Act. So I thank him again for bringing it forward, and we just need to continue to advocate that at Queen's Park. Thank you, Councillor Marula. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson, if you'd take the chair for a moment.
Of course.
And I would say that Councillor Marula's European roots are showing, and rightfully so. And you know, even though we've kidded people at different times at different locations, actually, he's not the master of stop signs. That was Dominic Agostino, well before Sam Marula, if I recall.
Sorry, I have to interject. I did the numbers. I surpassed him. Thank you.
I think you did, but at a given point in time, he was the master of the stop sign.
He was right.
I learned from him. Yes.
That's right, exactly. For all the right reasons, and you know, this is a cultural mindset that that we've basically fostered in Ontario, that isn't evident everywhere in the country, and certainly not in European countries as well. So it's not a matter of folks just jumping out into traffic. By the way, so that notion, I think, is that's a little scary. The experiences I've had in places where pedestrians are prioritized, Vancouver specifically, is if you indicate at any location that you want to cross the road, traffic on both sides stops and they let you do that, and then they carry on. It's very quick, it's very efficient, and very safe. And everyone understands that this is the protocol, this is the culture that they live in. And if you fail to do that, you're frowned upon. That should be the culture that we have, as opposed to you know, all these pedestrians walking around are in my way because I'm in a hurry to get to wherever I'm in a hurry to get to. That is a dangerous mindset, and certainly a cultural shift that we could make from the province of Ontario through the Highway Traffic Act. So I fully support Councillor Marula's direction on this. Let's try again to convince the provincial authorities. And you know, it's awkward to have it different attitudes in different places. So I think it's a provincial mindset that has to take place here, and it's going to be to the benefit of both drivers and pedestrians, because I think if we understand one another, understand the safety issues that this will promote, I think most reasonable people will adopt this as their part of their culture as well. So fully support it, and thank you for bringing it forward. I'll take the chair back. We are on that motion. And if there are no further speakers on the motion, I will ask for a vote. No further speakers indicated. So, Madam Clerk, if you would put up the vote on that, I'd appreciate it. And thumbs up from Councillor Powers. Thumbs up from Councillor Pauls. And that's carried. Thank you. And we're going to turn to the next motion, which is Councillor Wilson, safety enhancements on major arterial roads. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm asking the permission of council, my colleagues, to waive the rules. So I'll read the following: that the rules of order be waived to allow for the introduction of a motion respecting safety enhancements to major arterial roads, and it is moved by myself. That seeking that permission, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Nan.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on waiving the rules? Not seeing any. Thank you. All in favor? And thumbs up from Councillor Powers, thumbs up from Esther Pauls. Councillor Pauls, thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read the motion out. I have a few introductory comments I would like to say following my read, and then I know my colleagues will have some good questions. Whereas 10 people have been killed and many others have suffered serious injury from collisions on Hamilton's streets since January 2022. Whereas the City of Hamilton's annual collision report provides statistical data on all reported collisions on City of Hamilton roads during a 5-year period. Whereas there have been 70 fatal incidents, including 26 pedestrians and 2 cyclists over the past 5 years on Hamilton streets because of collisions, whereas the annual collision report reveals an overrepresentation of fatal and injury collision along Main and King Streets in Hamilton. Whereas the multimodal transportation focus under the term of council priorities 2018 to 2022, it is to identify that safety measures will be built in to ensure road safety for all users in line with the principles of a Vision Zero strategy. Whereas in 2019, City Council approved the City of Hamilton Vision Zero action plan, which identifies that fatalities and serious injuries on our roads are preventable and that no loss of life is acceptable. Whereas Hamilton City Council voted unanimously in support of Vision Zero action plan, which states that our city's street designs should minimize risk to all users, especially vulnerable users, such as our children, older adults, and people with disabilities. Whereas the implementation of LRT in the Main King Queenston corridor will transform our city and act as a catalyst for reprioritizing road space with a focus on pedestrians. Whereas Hamilton City Council voted unanimously to apply equity, diversity, and inclusion principles to all city actions and practices, including transportation, design, operations, and funding. Whereas Hamilton City Council unanimously declared a climate emergency that committed the municipality to prioritizing climate action and sustainability. Whereas equitable mobility means that all residents have an opportunity to move around reliably and safely, regardless of their abilities, their income, race, gender, their postal code, and means of transportation. Whereas the removal of unsafe conditions created by the existing design and operation of Main and King Streets would support healthy lives, social development, economic opportunities, and civic participation for all Hamilton residents. Whereas Complete Streets is an approach to planning, design, building, operating, and maintaining streets that enable safe access for all people who need to use them. Whereas the Hamilton Police Service have publicly reported that the structural redesign of King and Main is necessary to address the sustained pattern of fatalities and injuries. And whereas the city must honor its stated commitments to safety, accessible, equity, mitigating the impact of climate change to create a healthier, more livable, and prosperous city. Therefore, be it resolved, A, that staff identify actions that can be taken immediately to improve safety for all users along Main Street and King Street, such as an expanded and enhanced pedestrian space, temporary lane reductions, removal of parking restrictions, reduced speed limit, synchronized traffic signal operations, no right turn on red restrictions at intersections, and leading pedestrian intervals. B, that the conversion of Main Street from one-way to two-way be approved as an immediate safety intervention, and that an implementation plan be developed for the conversion of Main Street from one-way to two-way that integrates a complete street redesign that will enable safe use for all people who need to use the streets, including public transit riders, pedestrians, motorists, and cyclists, and that these spaces also contribute to climate resilience by providing shade trees and permeable surfaces. C, that staff be directed to undertake engagement with the public and advisory committees on the medium and long-term vision of Main Street that leverages a complete streets, EDI, and climate change approach. D, that staff consult with Metrolinx and the Ministry of Transportation on the implications of the implementation plan on LRT and Highway 403 interchanges. E, that staff report back in early 2023 with an implementation plan for the two-way conversion of Main that includes an assessment of costs, construction timing, and resource requirements. F, that the city retain a consultant to prepare the implementation plan for Main Street funded from Vision Zero Priorities capital budget at an upset limit of $400,000, and G, that staff update and reassess all remaining one-way streets in the City of Hamilton, utilizing the street conversion framework identified in the Transportation Master Plan, and report back to Council. My apologies, colleagues, for that long read, but I wanted to put it into the public record. I just have a few remarks, please, Mr. Mayor. Before I begin those remarks, I would like to recognize Councillor Partridge for her comments last week and her call to action. And so I'm responding to her leadership in that regard. Main Street and King Streets were changed, Mr. Mayor, literally overnight because of a sense of urgency to move both industrial vehicles and personal vehicles to and from the city's bayfront and home to fast-growing suburban communities. But that decision has done untold damage to small businesses along these corridors, to neighborhoods, and to the safety of people. People driving those streets, people crossing those streets, people walking those streets. The city's annual collision reports detail the recurring pattern of fatalities and injuries along these corridors. Mr. Mayor, due in part to your leadership, we are in a new era where we will fundamentally reshape this community around rapid transit, and we know that will require the conversion of Main from one-way to a two-way street. So the question is, do we wait until we are compelled to do it? And while we wait, more people will die and be injured. Or do we take action now and be proactive to address the legitimate needs and safety of citizens in this community? Let's approve the conversion of Main now and give our community and council the runway to do the very real consultation and study that needs to be done with small businesses and neighborhoods. And in so doing, Mr. Mayor, we will have this information and these details in our discussions with Metrolinx so that it is done by us and not to us. Let us carry on the direction of previous councils who, in their leadership of converting streets like James and John's, lit a fire of renewal and renaissance and, more importantly, safety to those streets and to their neighborhoods. Hamiltonians have always risen to challenges in their past because this city's strength truly is people. Hamilton's industrial history and some of the risks that came with that history and that practice, as it was presented to workers, to neighborhoods, and to businesses, has generated a people here that have always rallied when their neighbors got hurt or injured. And we are hearing those calls increasingly today. I know there were some out in the forecourt this morning, and you've received calls in your inboxes that they want us to continue to lead and to heed the calls for greater safety and less death, no death, and injury. Hamilton has always risen to these challenges. It is before this council to rise again. I would like to pause and say to those who may suggest that we have to do consultation prior to moving this direction, I would say that if a bridge is failing and requires repair due to public safety, do you consult with the public on whether it should be repaired? No. On matters of public safety, you act and you fix the problem because that is our first and our foremost responsibility. This is, yes, about neighborhoods. This is, yes, about livelihoods. But more than anything else, this is about saving lives. I have confidence that this council will rise to this occasion as it has done on every other occasion in its past. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Nan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, it's my service to Ward 3 residents and all Hamiltonians to have worked with Councillor Wilson on this motion, and it's my privilege to second it. Let me speak a little bit about who this motion is for. Imagine your best friend just turned 49, and on the next morning, as a dedicated accessible transit service driver, carrying out her service as she's been doing for the past 20 years, was struck and killed by a driver who jumped the curb. Imagine your dad had booked his flight to come to your wedding, but will never make it because he and his colleagues were walking to gather their equipment to clean a pizza when they were fatally struck by a speeding vehicle. Imagine your 14-year-old girl had to push your 6-year-old son out of the way of a van that failed to stop and where the driver fled after smashing into your 14-year-old girl, breaking her legs, her arms, fracturing her back and skull, and leading to her brain to bleed and be damaged. An esteemed maestro, teenagers, seniors, people with disabilities, my sincere condolences to all of their loved ones. 10 people have been killed, and many others have suffered serious injury from collisions on Hamilton streets this year alone. And most of the pedestrians that were hit by cars were crossing legally in crosswalks. 4 of the 10 who've died this year were people who were killed on sidewalks after the driver mounted the curb. And as previously stated during the 2017 and 2021 collision report, we've heard 70 residents have died, 26 of them pedestrians, 2 of them cyclists. And that report clearly indicates that the roads that are killing and harming our residents are Main Street and King Street. Enough. This motion is for them, for all of them and all of those before. We can never bring back the lives that have been lost, and we can never restore the health of those who've been critically injured. But what we can do today as a council is pass this motion and take a clear and unequivocal stand as leaders, as elected decision makers of this city, stating that we will no longer accept the status quo, that we will not leave things unchanged, that we will not be numb to the devastating heartache of our people being killed on our roads, that instead, we stand in our responsibility as a council to ensure that our roadways are built for safety and not speed, that our roadways are built for the safety of all roadway users, regardless of their mode of travel, and that our roadways must be conducive to community life and to living. This term of council approved the principles of Vision Zero. This term, not one more death, not one more critical injury, period. We approved this not as lip service, but as a testament to the futures that we take the responsibility to create. So let us come full circle and round out this term of council by taking action that will make a real impact towards roadway safety and on the roads that have had the highest number of people dying on them. Let's breathe back life into our neighborhoods and communities. Instead of having Hamiltonians avoid their main street, let's reclaim our streets. Let's reclaim life, and let's reclaim the future of this city. I thank you, colleagues. I thank you, everybody in the public who's been speaking out loudly now for decades on this issue. For all of those Hamiltonians who've recently moved here and are wondering what is going on, thank you for raising your voice. I stand firmly in support of this motion, and I feel honored to be among those councillors around this table who've taken roadway safety seriously and have acted with leadership in face of opposition over the years and started charting a path forward for a truly beautiful city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'm likely one that when Councillor Wilson made her comments, made reference to about somebody who, somebody's who suggested that the analysis should take place before anything should happen. And she's indeed correct. I mean, in the early stages, my reaction was in referring to Section B is it's one of these things where maybe we're getting the cart before the horse. But I took the time to have the conversation with the appropriate staff who we've delegated to investigate and do their homework on issues such as this. This is a motion that is supported by the 4 ward councillors, of which Main Street as we know it has an impact, is basically the spine that runs through their particular wards. And having discussions with as I said, the professional staff who do the analysis and do the work, they've already done a lot of this particular homework. So my only concern in seeing B was the wording of immediate safety intervention. But we know it will not be immediate, but if we don't get started, it never will get done. So for those reasons and my consultation with our professional staff, I support the proposal that's being made by the 2 councillors and supported by the other 4 councillors, and will be on side in support of this motion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and certainly very, very sympathetic to and sincerely sorry for all the injuries and deaths over the years on all of our city streets to pedestrians. And, you know, it seems like, and I don't want to blame COVID, but it's very strange that over the last 2 years, any one of us on council can say there has been nothing greater than the complaints of speeding throughout all of our neighborhoods. So, you know, I am sympathetic to this going forward. I agree, and just touching on Councillor Power's concerns, I am very concerned of saying, you know, we're approving it now. I believe there was a report done in 2018, and I think it was Brian Hollingsworth at the time. I would really like to, instead of saying that we approve it now, that staff come back with the process. We all know, Mr. Mayor, that there's a number of issues that have to be addressed. And Councillor Wilson has placed it in here, the issue of the consultation with Metrolinx and the Ministry of Transportation. Unfortunately, our roads were created many moons ago as Highway number 8 and King Street. And I guess I'm dating myself when I can tell you, I remember before the 403 went through that King Street was two-way. And I was very, very young. So let me just add that as a stipulation there. But, you know, we have those issues as the exits, 2 eastbound exits off the 403 right now onto Main Street. I'd like to understand how this is going to be addressed, because obviously we're going to be at the mercy of the provincial governments for changing and redirecting any of these exits going forward. The other concern, Mr. Mayor, I had is we just approved, if I'm not mistaken, the truck route recommendations. And there was a huge amount of interaction and involvement in public meetings, et cetera, with regards to the truck route recommendations. And at that time, converting King Street we'll leave out, but Main Street to two-way was never in there. So I have concerns of that. Certainly support moving forward with whatever can be done now as traffic calming, looking at, and I know the synchronization, there's been concerns, and I'm going to be honest, the concerns for my residents is the efficiencies the synchronization of the lights create. I mean, you have to be going at a certain speed in order to keep making those lights. And honestly, I can make it to Riverdale, but I have to follow the speed limit, and I do. But I do support the interim, but I'm really concerned with saying we approve this now without having staff come back with a report to tell us exactly how this is going to be laid out. And again, you know, I have concerns that way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor Eisenberger. Wish to sincerely salute and commend Councillors Wilson and Nan for bringing this motion forward. My goodness, the thoroughness of the researched amount of information that Councillor Wilson and Nan have done in all the whereases, and then the prudent, thoughtful approach in the various therefore be it resolved action items, both immediate and for next year, whoever's on council, is very much appreciated by myself and is a proper course of action. So I commend them and salute them. Mr. Mayor, I was on council, as you know, about 20 years ago after amalgamation, when James and John, the north-south arterial corridors in our city, the spines of north-south from the lake right to the escarpment's edge around St. Joe's Hospital, was approved for the two-way conversion. And oh my god, and how ironically, Mr. Mayor, the business community primarily along those two corridors led the lobby for the conversion of those one-way streets to two-way. And here we are today, much more citizen-led for the conversion of Main Street, and King, of course, with the LRT will occur. But for Main Street, more citizen-led. But I remember, Mr. Mayor, 20 years ago with the James John corridor conversions, which I supported, lost some votes up in my area because people traditionally had said the one-way system was much more quicker, efficient. It was going to create congestion, new traffic problems, trying to get in and around the hospital, etc. And they would have to drive a little slower down on James and John to get to the businesses they want to go to. But overall, it's been, in my humble opinion, a tremendous success. Look at all the festivals alone that now occur on James Street with Art Crawl, Super Crawl, all those great events, and right to our water's edge as well. So I'll be strongly supportive of this. You know, Mr. Mayor, I knew this time was coming. And I say this so respectfully to all my colleagues and to yourself, Your Worship. I guess much of all the energies of those champions of the LRT, which I never was, but for those that respectfully were champions of the LRT, I'm going to presume that so much of your energy and political capital was spent on ensuring the appropriate dollars would eventually come to make that transformative project a reality in our community, that possibly the Main Street conversion was left to the point of when the LRT were to occur, Main would naturally follow. But obviously, in light of the calamities and the casualties that have occurred, we just have to accelerate and expedite the Main Street conversion. And to Councillor Nan's point about all the fatalities and those who have sadly, innocently, no longer are with us in their memory, I remind all my council colleagues who are just so wonderfully, lovingly supportive of the Strickland family that all the traffic safety audit measures that have been forthcoming and implemented, I've always said, would be so that his little life was not lost in vain. So I piggyback on Councillor Nan's point about the unfortunate, tragic, recent loss of lives. So, Mr. Mayor, I think this package is the timing is right, and it was eventually going to happen. It was just a matter of when, and we're accelerating it with this motion. Strongly supportive. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marula.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I too want to commend Councillor Wilson and Nan. The timing is right, and Councillor Jackson is also correct. Outside of the train itself, the LRT, from my perspective, was about two issues, and that being the infrastructure. All that beautiful renewal for 13 kilometers, we would never have had that opportunity ever again in our in the future. So that coupled with knowing that ultimately that one-way highway would, on both ends, Main and King, would be eliminated. But as it's been mentioned, the timing is perfect now as a result of the call for action because of the public safety issues. But we need to understand how this all happened so it won't happen again. We were probably the only city, I think, and I said this for so many years, where the downtown core, that people left, all the money left the core, and urban sprawl dominated. And if you look at Hamilton, if you looked at Hamilton back in 2000, we were basically the only city in the entire Western Democratic Hemisphere where the money left the core and went to the suburbs, not the other way around. Ultimately, we knew, a number of us knew, that that was going to be reversed. The highways that were created on the main arteries was really class warfare, because at that time all the money was leaving the core, so they didn't care. They thought, who cares? I remember when my wife and I started buying properties down there, they said, you guys are crazy. They're all crackheads down there. Why would you do that? That's the actual mentality that we were at in Hamilton. So that whole system was created to try to move people as quickly out as possible from the core. Now, we're living in a different world, folks. Houses are selling for $1 million when they were selling for $25,000. That's the reality we're faced with. And now the change of vehicular traffic, believe it or not, is directly correlated, because those moving in now are spending $1 million for a house will not stand for this kind of nonsense. But we had to, because we didn't have the support for so many years, although we had to use backdoor means of trying to mitigate all of the issues that were before us. So I'm really applauding what's before us, and I'm really applauding because it's actually happened while I'm still on council. As you know, I'm retiring, so I'm glad to see that this is actually coming to fruition, and this is the first step to it coming to fruition. So thanks very much, folks, and it's a great decision. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is Mr. Solda with us today?
No doubt he's here, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So my question to Edward is, when I look at item A, I think that really happens under your delegated authority? Does staff have the delegated authority to move forward and make those types of changes in item A?
Thank you through the mayor to the councillor, Edward Soldo, the chief road official for the city of Hamilton. In response to your question, councillor, there are a number of items there that staff can operationalize using our existing delegated authority, but there are some aspects of item A, the no right turn on red, that would come back for council approval through the traffic bylaw and potentially as well, if we're looking at enhancing parking, that would have to come back to council through the parking bylaw. So there are some things that will have to come back to council for approvals, but the majority of those things are things that we can operationalize through our authorities as we have them.
Thank you very much. With reference to item B, which is the conversion of Main Street, would this type of conversion require an environmental assessment, or can we do the engagement and design work without going through that protracted and prescribed process?
Thank you. Mr. Soldo?
Thank you to the mayor, to the councillor. All infrastructure works really do fall underneath various schedules of the environmental assessment process. Two-way to one-way conversions are considered to be Schedule A+ projects for the most part. There is a public notification requirement of Schedule A pluses, which requires a notice of construction. But given the scope of a project of this nature, we would follow a best practice of having more in-depth engagement with the public, and that's really why we have the one of the other recommendations there, that we go out and have consultation on what are the details of the implementation plan with the public and our various agencies.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, and to reference Mr. Soldo's last comment, does item C enable you to do that type of engagement which would satisfy a Schedule A?
Thank you through the mayor to the councillor. That's correct. We would utilize that direction in item C there to undertake a more robust consultation program for the implementation plan prior to coming back to council with the details of the implementation plan.
Thank you. And the next question is with regards to our responsibilities to prepare for the LRT construction. I'm assuming, Mr. Mayor, that it would be our responsibility to figure out how we would divert traffic away from the LRT route, especially during construction. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to the councillor, working with our colleagues at Metrolinx and the MTO, we would work with them in terms of the staging of construction, how the construction management plans we put together, where the detours of traffic would occur. The two-waying of Main Street would help enable the construction by having a parallel route along that corridor.
So this would help alleviate some of the congestion that we might experience from LRT construction. I'm paraphrasing.
Yes, through the mayor to the councillor, that would it would be a mitigation for that construction. It would allow for additional westbound capacity during construction, and as well in the long term as well, given the fact we are reducing the westbound capacity on King Street in the long term with the implementation of LRT.
So, Mr. Mayor, what I believe I have heard is that because it would be a Schedule A process, we would be engaging the public as per Councillor Wilson's section C. And I believe what I heard was that there would be a report back to council or maybe Public Works and then to council on the design of how we would accomplish any two-waying on on Main Street, and that there would be bylaws coming back to us that would enable the no right turn and enhanced parking. My last question would be, those two bylaws, do we have to wait for the engagement from the Schedule A, or could Mr. Solda and his staff review the street and come back with the appropriate changes to no right turn and enhanced parking bylaws in advance of the final report on the two-waying of Main?
Yep. Mr. Soldo.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the councillor. I believe it was the intent of item A there to undertake some immediate actions to improve safety for all users along both Main and King. My interpretation of that is that we would come back to council with staff recommendations for where those locations would be related to no right turn unread, as well as any parking in the short term, and that would be approved through council. The consultation would be more focused on the conversion, the actual conversion of Main Street and what that looks like through the implementation plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those are all my comments, and I think I've eaten up my time. I would like to make comments if you could come back to me quickly after.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Once we've followed up with some other speakers. Councillor Ferguson, first time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to, Edward, just leave your camera on for a second. I have another question for you as our chief road official. I've raised this throughout the debate on the LRT, and I'm going to raise it again today. If you're westbound on the new Main Street, because it's only eastbound now, how will you access 403? And because I drive that route every day, or when we're in City Hall, I drive that route regularly. And there's most of the traffic going westbound either goes eastbound or westbound on the 403. And there is no ramps from Main Street to get on 403. And there doesn't appear to be any room for new ramps. So how would we manage that?
Edward?
Thank you. Through the mayor to the councillor. The purpose of the two-waying will allow for more westbound capacity, but in terms of your particular question of direct access from Main Street, there would still continue to be no direct access because that is not how the interchange is set up. The traffic would utilize Main Street and then have to utilize either, Queen or Dundurn to get to either King or to Aberdeen, where they can access the ramps onto the 403.
Well, what happens when the LRT starts to go in next year and King Street's not available to go westbound? There's one lane eastbound, as I understand it.
Edward?
Thank you through the mayor to the councillor. The access ramps are still going to be in place on King Street. Granted, there would be a time period where it might be a little more difficult to get through there, but King Street would still have access to the 403 even during construction.
Okay, I guess you don't understand my question. There is no westbound King Street through the downtown area. You can't access westbound on King off of Queen or Aberdeen because the tracks will be there and we won't be allowed to cross over it. And so if part of the solution of making Main two-way, how are we going to get on the westbound 403 during construction and after the train is built?
Through the mayor to the councillor, just for clarity, Aberdeen, sorry, not Aberdeen.
Aberdeen's been reduced to 2 lanes now.
Queen Street and Dundurn are full intersections. So where they connect with King Street, you'll still be able to access King Street from those locations. Once you get onto King Street, then you'll have access to the 403.
And you haven't seen the drawings that show the only section in that area of Dundurn to Queen is an eastbound lane so that people who have homes on that north side can get access to them. There will be no westbound lane, I understand it, but I've been raising this for months and not years now with Metrolinx. How are you going to solve this problem? And I haven't got an answer yet. but somebody needs to get their head around it. If we're going to convert Main to two-way, how are we going to get access to 403? And nobody has an answer to that for me other than
well, you know, I suspect we're not going to solve that today, but every problem needs a solution. And I think Edward, a final kind of comment on that.
Sure. Just so I'm clear on the question there. There is a westbound lane along King Street with the LRT. There is, I think maybe Councillor, you may have not seen the latest drawings, but there is a westbound lane on King Street that does connect to the 403 along the entire stretch of the LRT from the downtown James Street to the 403.
Yep.
Okay, so the 5 lanes that come westbound on King Street now have to go down Main and then go up and get on the 1 lane westbound, if that's correct, to access the 403. Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to belabor this further now. I don't think there's a solution. There's no room to put ramps onto the 403 off Main Street, and I think you know because I've talked to you privately about it too. This is a huge problem for people from Lancaster. How are they going to get home? They can get down there okay, but how are you going to get home? And so you're going to chase a lot of people. But back to the motion before us. I just have some comments if I can. Or maybe I should go back. How much time do I have left, Mr. Mayor?
Madam Clerk is keeping time. I'm not sure, but go ahead and we'll let you know when we're down to a minute.
Okay, as most of you know, I spent 32 years in the private sector, a number of those in a senior position, and I regularly went to training sessions to the parent company in Europe. So I'm very familiar with Europe too. And the thing they always drove into our head is never, 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 never make a decision on a motion. And I certainly understand the motion today because I've heard it from a number of speeches so far. Yeah, I mean, 10 people being killed with traffic strikes is unacceptable. But I haven't heard any evidence that by converting Main to two-way is the silver bullet. And I certainly, you know, I guess where I'm going is I want to hear from the experts before I make the decision, because item B says the conversion of Main Street from one-way to two-way is approved. And that troubles me without hearing from the experts. Today in the Public Works report, item 5 is a motion asking our traffic staff to meet with Hamilton Police to review what these the silver bullet is, what is causing all these collisions with pedestrians. And if they come back and said this is the right way to go, then that would make me feel a lot more comfortable, because there is a lot of people who commute down Main Street to get to work. These are tax-paying people also. These are ones that pay a lot of taxes because they go to work every day to do a lot of things others want to see done in our community. And we're going to get a lot of criticism from them, because it's going to inconvenience them. And I'd like to be able to lay factual data in front of them. I don't know right today. It seems to be the tipping point was the unfortunate, terrible accident of the bus driver being hit coming out of her bus with the darts vehicle. I've heard it wasn't alcohol. That was been in the media. I heard it wasn't a medical condition. So what caused it? We don't know, but we're making this decision anyway. And so I just can't support item B at this time. I know that Councillor Pearson, I think, was going down the same route as I am right now. But I'd like to have factual data, because I am going to get clobbered by people from Lancaster who use Main Street to go to work and King Street to come home, and they're not going to be able to do that, come westbound at least, and get on the 403 after the LRT is in. I mean, nobody's told me the solution. So I would like to see B tabled until we see the report back that we just approved the request in Public Works item 5 about this very issue. Get the factual data in front of us so we can make an informed decision.
Okay, that's time for you.
Okay.
Thank you. We're going to turn to Councillor Vanderbeek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start with I will support this completely. I want to thank Councillor Nan and Councillor Wilson, well, the other way around, because Councillor Wilson is is put the motion forward, but I am sure that they work together and that it is teamwork. I also want to thank Councillor Partridge for speaking up and sort of kind of that last push to say that it can't wait and it is time now. And I know there are challenges. I see those challenges too. You know, you're not on council even for one term without understanding the many challenges that come with trying to resolve an issue that is so complicated as this issue is, because there's so many things involved. But I am wholeheartedly on board to get this started, and I have a lot of confidence in our staff that if there are complications and if there are challenges that seem difficult to overcome, that they'll come back and that they'll work with us and that we will come up with a resolution. And so I'm going to be voting for it, regardless of all of that. And I am grateful that we have the staff that support this, that are going to be able to work the way through those challenges. So that's all I'm going to say. I just wanted to express my support for it because I think its time has come, and I think that we have to start somewhere. It is unacceptable that things are happening in our work, no matter what the reason. So we've got to start somewhere and get going. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pauls.
And thank you, Mayor. The wellness and safety of people should be our first priority. So let me start with that. But I want to ask I think it's Edward Soldo about, was there any study being done about two-way and one-way, which is safer?
Mr. Soldo.
Thank you through the mayor to the councillor. In terms of studying it, there's been a lot of work that's been done in the past through the Transportation Master Plan, looking at the conversion of one-way streets to two-way streets here at the City of Hamilton. And then from a roadway safety perspective, staff has analyzed this corridor as well as all the other roadways that we have through our annual collision report. I would maybe refer to Mr. Hollingworth, the Director of Transportation Planning and Parking, to provide an overview of the work that was looked at previously through the Transportation Master Plan.
Yes, thank you for the introduction there, Edward. Brian Hollingworth, Director of Transportation Planning and Parking. Through the chair, as Edward mentioned, there was some work done on one-way, two-way conversions as part of the 2018 Transportation Master Plan. And in fact, a lot of work done back in 2001 as part of the Downtown Hamilton Transportation Master Plan, which was the impetus for the conversion of James, John, and other streets. As part of the 2018 Transportation Master Plan, there was a review and a discussion of the history of one-way streets in Hamilton, some of the advantages and disadvantages. There was a discussion of safety, and I can say, that it's not definitive. It comes down to one-way streets have fewer conflicts, but two-way streets generally encourage slower traffic. So, there is a prevailing view that there are some benefits benefits to two-way streets in terms of safety, and I think we've seen that on the slower traffic speeds on James and John and other streets. The Transportation Master Plan did look at alternatives for Main Street, looking at three options and some of the implications of those. And it also outlined a decision framework for how we as a city decide to look at evaluating potential candidates for two-way streets. That's just a general overview. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pauls.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if my colleagues know, but my husband and I used to have an insurance broker. And I have my REBO license, which is an insurance license. And the first thing we ask when somebody wants to get insurance is your postal code. Where do you live? And the second one is, do you drive to work or not? Those are the main questions. Then they decide how your insurance rate should apply. I'm just wondering, all the intensification that's happening downtown, all the condos, all the apartment buildings, all the business people, I'm just wondering, there'll be more cars, there's going to be more pedestrians. I look up on the mountain where I am, on Upper Wentworth, there is so much distraction there, and there's two-way. There's the mall, there's all kinds of stores. Somebody died there, I think he was 42 years old, and it was a two-way. So there's lots of distraction, more intensification. Where I am on Upper Wellington here, they're going to build condos, 5 condos, right across on Upper James and Stone Church. I'm on Upper Welland. They're going to build more condos. I can't even get out of my driveway. So I'm just wondering, and the question is to Edward Soldo, are the roads being accommodated or adjust to the intensification of our downtown and our area all over Hamilton?
Thank you. Brian or Edward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the councillor, I think I'll start, and I believe Brian might want to chime in as well. In terms of intensification and development throughout the city, we do look at accommodating all modes of travel through our transportation master plan. That is really the intent of a transportation master plan, is to ensure that we have a transportation network that is safe and provides for the accommodation of all modes to an acceptable level of service. Sure, if Brian would like to comment on that.
As Edward mentioned, we look at it both from the high level, the citywide transportation master plan, the neighborhood level, secondary plans and sub-area transportation studies, and then as part of each individual development. I would say that, our transportation master plan is based on a mode shift. As development occurs, the more people that we can get on transit, the better it is from a traffic perspective, as well as getting people in denser communities that live in close proximity that they can actually walk and cycle. The best way to reduce traffic is not have to make the trip, and compact urban development is one way to do that. So we look at it from a number of angles, as well as LRT in terms of its potential for mode shift. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pauls, you're at time, so I can put you on a second time, or unless you have
I just finished. Give me 30 seconds. Of course, I will support the motion because I do want safety. But I really believe we need to promote more transit if we're downtown. Get rid of your cars, because if we're probably going to get at least another 100,000 people within 10 years in our downtown. So, and all over the city, we're expected to have over 250,000 new people coming to Hamilton. So more cars, more pedestrian, more accidents. So we have to be, and it's clear that distraction is one main problem that we have. But I will support the motion, and I appreciate Councillor Wilson and Councillor Nan for bringing it, because safety is true, and the well-being of our citizens are most important. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In my ward, residents from time to time on different streets will see these traffic counters that I ask our staff to put down. And the traffic counters not only provide the volume of the traffic on the road, but the speeds that the traffic is doing. And when we get those reports back, and I've had them done on, I bet you, a dozen streets now, and the reports come back showing the 85th percentile is at or very close to the speed limit, and 15% are exceeding it, in some cases rather dramatically. And it's our job as councillors to work with our staff to find the ways and the means to inhibit conflict between pedestrians and automobiles or vehicles, and inhibit the conflict between vehicles. And so we use that type of data to tell us where we have to go. I look at Paramount Drive in my ward, and they did a redesign, and I thank Mr. Solda and his staff. They did a phenomenal job. We had an issue with speed there. They put in islands, 23 islands, I believe, with trees, and flowers are going in this spring, and it separates the vehicles. Ironically, it worked. The speeds have slowed. Our staff know what they're doing. So when I hear Mr. Solda, who I respect immensely, indicate to me that these things can be done and he will come back with a design to council and then council can proceed with it, I can support that. When I hear from Mr. Solda that they will be engaging the public prior to making the decision on design that comes back to council, that's what we want to hear. When I come to council and I ask my colleagues for support in my ward because I have an issue of speeding and I need speed cushions, and we've all done that, council supports me. And when my colleagues come to council requesting the same thing, I support them. They've done their homework, they've done the engagement, they've worked with staff, and this is the solution that will provide traffic calming. When I see 4 councillors along one route, all supporting one recommendation, which is to, again, minimize conflict between pedestrians and automobiles, I have to support that. How can we not support our colleagues when they're coming forward with something for their wards and they've done their homework and they understand the ramifications of their decision? Finally, Mr. Mayor, I look at the LRT project is coming. And I remember a long time ago, and I can't remember the fellow's name, he taught me the 7 Ps. Proper prior planning prevents pretty poor performance. Great alliteration. But that's what we need to do, as Mr. Solda indicated, with regards to LRT coming. We need to be prepared to divert traffic to minimize the congestion as a result of construction and as a result of the implementation of LRT. So all of my comments show very clearly that the evidence is before us. There's a challenge that we must address. It's our responsibility to come forward with the solution. The councillors have come forward with that solution, and I would say, Mr. Mayor, that it is imperative for councillors around this table to support them as we move through this process. Let's get the final design, and then we can make the final decision and timing of any construction down the road. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank the councillors for bringing forward this comprehensive motion.
Thank you. Councillor Marula, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on the direct access to the QEW, I think it's an important issue, but one that needs to be expanded upon in highlighting that there may not be direct access, but there's indirect access, as Director Soldo had mentioned. So not too dissimilar to any other great city downtown, there's congestion, whether that be Toronto, Manhattan, Paris, or Nice, France. It's a good sign to have congestion, especially when they're going slower, because the speed kills, and there's metrics that clearly illustrates that the faster you go, the more likely you can kill somebody if you hit them. So at the end of the day, it is by design to try to create congestion to slow traffic down in order to save lives. And I don't make apologies for that. Frankly, Ward 4's Main Street and King Street is two-way. It works perfectly fine. And frankly, people are much slower on that stretch of King and Main because it is two ways. Now, it doesn't eliminate the problem, But I can assure you that if you look at statistics of speed and fatalities between the Delta or Gage Park and McMaster, or no, not McMaster, let's say Dundurn, I can assure you that those numbers would be stark, or in that just drastic difference negatively compared to Ottawa Street moving east. So, and lastly, let's face it, we built an arena without having an NHL team and hoping for one. We can at least make King Street and Main Street two ways and then work on the details later. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're clever today, I tell you. Good debating points. Okay, we've had a pretty fulsome discussion on this, so I highly recommend that we get to a vote. So it has been moved and seconded by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Nan. I see no further comments or questions indicated, so let's put that vote up and test the will of council. Thumbs up from Councillor Powers. Oops, I had an indication to separate B if possible. So sorry, I didn't see that in the chat until just now. That's our request. Normally we accommodate those requests. So Councillor Pearson, did you want to indicate how you might split that off?
So we canceled that initial
Mr.
vote
Mayor?
and we'll put B up first.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
And then item B, you want to vote on it separately, or did you want to split item B?
Mr. Mayor, I'd respectfully request a vote separately on item B. I do not support that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So then on item B, this is item B only at this point. All in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. And then on the item as a whole, and moved and seconded, all in favor, vote will pop up in a moment. And any opposed?
So this is on 7.2, the remainder,
Correct.
excluding B.
Yes. Okay. And thumbs up from Councillor Powers. I believe I saw that earlier. Thank you.
We were just waiting on Councillor Pauls.
Okay.
Can't get it either.
Thumbs up from Councillor Pauls.
That carries 13-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues.
We're making good progress here, folks. So that I think somebody had a 1 o'clock deadline. Maybe we can achieve that. But I'm next up in terms of notice of motion. So, Councillor Wilson, if you would take the chair.
Of course, Mr. Mayor.
I would request a waiving of the rules as well. I moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Johnson, to waive the rules.
Vote is up.
Okay, thank you.
I see Councillor Powers' thumb up, clerk.
Yes, and we got Councillor Pauls as well.
Thank you. That carries 14 to 0 to waive. Please proceed, Mayor Eisenberger.
Thank you. And it's moved by myself and as requested, seconded by Councillor Johnson, I think. Whereas council voted to ban expressions and symbols of associated with hate from public property within the city's jurisdiction on August the 9th, 2021. And whereas council at its meeting of June 23rd, 2021 endorsed private members bill C-313 banning symbols of hate act. Whereas the 43rd Parliament was dissolved on August 15th, 2021, bringing an end to all proceedings and bills before Parliament. And whereas Bill C-229, an act to amend the criminal code banning symbols of hate, was introduced for first reading on February the 3rd, 2022. And whereas hate symbols caused community and individual harm, therefore be it resolved that A, that the Hamilton City Council endorse Bill C-229, an act to amend the criminal code banning symbols of hate. B, that Council requests the federal and provincial governments act swiftly to take action to ban symbols of hate. And C, that the federal government develop a legislation that would clarify and strengthen the definition of hate speech and symbols, and work with all orders of government in addressing the root causes of hate speech. And D, that the provincial government enact legislation to enable municipalities to make enforceable decisions regarding symbols deemed unacceptable by the local community, including a review of statutes where hate speech may be identified as illegal. And if I just could briefly, this was obviously precipitated by a recent Confederate flag issue, but certainly, no shortage of other symbols in the past that have been particularly frustrating in our community and particularly harmful and targeting some of our, more marginalized communities and communities that are targets for hate on a fairly regular basis, being, the Black community, the Jewish community, the Indigenous community. I mean, you can line them up. Unfortunately, I would assume all members of council will stand firmly against all of those kinds of hate symbols, and we've, as a council, have banned them from public property to the best degree that we can. But the sad reality is that it is unenforceable other than through public or peer pressure on private property. And so this is what this Bill C-229 actually gets to address, that it needs to be done on a policy basis on the federal side for it to have enforceability through the police actions that might want to enforce that in the future. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to bring this kind of motion forward. I would hope that all members of council would support and endorse these actions, and of course, encourage our federal and provincial governments to put in place enforceable policies and statutes that the city and police can follow through on. And currently, that isn't the case, other than properties that we have management and control over. And so we encourage them to follow through on that basis. So I thank you for the opportunity to bring forward this motion, and I look forward to fulsome support from all members of council on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I recognize Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilson, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for not only creating this motion, but also taking the lead, speaking out on the hate symbols from the last few weeks, and also in the past as well. I was on a scheduled family vacation and was unable to attend last week, so I really appreciate the opportunity to speak on this for the public record. I also want to thank those who organized the anti-hate rally in Bimbrook and those who came out speaking against anti-hate symbols. I was actually very surprised that the City of Hamilton was powerless to enforce anti-hate symbols on private property. So this is really coming at it's too bad that this has to wait until the private bill for Mr. Gillian does get through, and it's very frustrating that the Parliament has recessed. But I can say for the record that as a representative of Glanbrook and a citizen of Hamilton, I want to publicly say there is just no place for anti-hate symbols anywhere, anytime. So I don't want to belabor this. I really think that it's important for people to understand that the majority of those who reached out to me about this whole situation were absolutely disgusted, and just wanted to let you know that one symbol does not reflect the feelings and the beliefs of those who live in the Glanbrook area and citywide. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much, and I support the motion. The challenge that I think the municipality has been experiencing, and many municipalities have been experiencing, is that police departments interpret the criminal code with regards to inciting of hatred and inciting of violence slightly differently all over the province. And so when it comes to hate symbols, we need clarification from the federal government in law that these symbols are inciting hatred and inciting violence. And then the province can appropriately amend the criminal code to ensure that those transgressions can be prosecuted. I'm not quite sure about D because we have to be careful that we follow the same criminal code as every other municipality. And if we as a municipality can then say, okay, well, we're adopting the following signs as being hate signs and it's not consistent with the feds or the province, then we run into trouble. That being said, I'll support D. I'm not going to oppose it. I think we need to hear from the feds and the province in terms of how they're going to fix this, because it is consistently an issue. It's happening in every single municipality in Ontario, especially the larger cities. And municipalities and many police departments feel unless there is an overt act to incite violence or incite hatred, they won't address it. And I understand it, because the way the law is written, it is confusing. So I think Mayor Eisenberger's motion is timely. We are gently pushing the federal government and the provinces to do the appropriate thing and review their laws so that they can be enforced by the police department. Because what Councillor Johnson said just earlier, you know, our hands are tied behind our backs, and we have this flag flying that's causing a great amount of division. And I understand it's from perspective. If you have not experienced the hate and the violence of a mob that's carrying those flags, then you may not understand why those flags, which some claim are historical documents, are okay. They're not okay. Their history is very clear. Those emblems literally incite others to hatred and violence. And so I think the mayor's motion is most appropriate, and I will support it fully. Thank you, sir, for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor. There are no other speakers. So if clerk, your assistance in putting the vote up, please. It's up. That carries 14-0. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I can hand back the chair.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your comments and support. Much appreciated. I'm sure there's other community members that are looking forward to this kind of policy change. We'd appreciate it as well. We are now at statement by members, and I'm going to go to Councillor Wilson, and then we'll go down the list from there. Councillor Wilson.
Nothing for me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nan.
Yeah, thank you. Two updates. One for any resident who wanted to provide comments to the Victoria Avenue Phase 2 cycle track. Comments can be submitted until May 13th. Please review the virtual community consultation that was held with staff through our YouTube channel, and you can submit your comments through to the Ward 3 office at ward3@hamilton.ca. Also, a reminder to everyone across Hamilton that this weekend is So Hungry on Ottawa Street. Come on down, get your grub on, enjoy the great food that's going to be on display, as well as give some love and support to all the shops on Ottawa Street. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Marula. Nothing for you? Okay, thank you. Councillor Powers?
Nothing from me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, I told all my colleagues for many, many months that Ward 6 residents were yearning to meet in person. And over the proposal for the new plaza and residential development at Upper Ottawa and Fennel, where the old 5-pin bowling lanes used to be, Mr. Mayor, I had over 100 people attend my first in-person town hall meeting at one of the local banquet centers. Great turnout, good 2-hour meeting, and there's going to be a follow-up meeting with the owners of the plaza on May 26th, Thursday, May 26th, 6:30 p.m. at Carmen's Banquet Hall as a follow-up meeting to some of the questions, concerns that came out of the first meeting on April 25th. May 26th, 6:30 at Carmen's. The owners will join me in hopefully addressing some of the concerns and other additional amenities of the project, including the proposal to reinstate the 5-pin bowling lanes at Sherwood. Secondly, Mr. Mayor, just to let the Mountain Brow concession residents know, from Upper Gauge to Oakcrest and the neighborhoods behind Mountain Brown concession, probably by early mid-June, I'm going to have another town hall meeting, probably at the same banquet hall, date to be set still, and working with staff for the reconstruction of concession Mountain Brow Boulevard. We're going to replicate and mimic the extremely popular and successful reconstruction of Mountain Brow that occurred 4 or 5 years ago from Mohawk to the top of the Kenilworth Circle. This will be now from the Oakcrest Kenilworth Circle all the way to Upper Gauge. You'll require some great improvements of access along the escarpment's edge, connecting as well into the soon-to-be beginning redeveloped Mountain Drive Park at Upper Gauge and Concession as well. Stay tuned. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Pauls.
Thank you, Mayor. In the last 4 years, I've been volunteering at the Options for Independent Living and Development. It's located on George Street. And I want to tell you something, and it's in Councillor Wilson's ward, and I know she's going to support this because she knows all about it. I want to tell you that the last 4 years when I'm with those people, my worries all go away. I volunteer there, I eat with them, I go for a walk with them. I do it once a week, and it's wonderful. I met great friends. And I want everybody to know that on Saturday, June 18th, I'm going to have a 5K run and a 3K walk at 10:30. It's going to be at the park at where's the park? I know the park.
Victoria
Thank
Park.
you, Counselor. It's Victoria Park, because that's where we go anyways. I should have known. But anyway, it's going to be there. But I want to tell you some great news. They're going to do a 24 new affordable housing apartment. This project will focus on a special needs community. So I think it's so important. And the best thing is this. We already have a donor for $25,000. I was shocked. I put it up on our website, and I'll tell you, somebody gave us $25,000 for 24 more affordable housing. So this is so exciting for me. I know Councilor Wilson will be there, saying few words. We're expecting 300 people. We're pushing it for more. If you can walk, please join us. I want to tell you that I already called the Hamilton Police to bring the mounted horse there, because they said, wouldn't it be great? We talk about it all the time. Once a week, I go there and we talk about this event. And I was able to have them come. The paramedics will be there. It's just going to be a fun festival-like time for these people. But I want to tell you, it's an honor to help them out, and it's an honor that I part of this amazing event. And so I want to thank Councillor Wilson. I know she had a meeting with Mike Powers, and he told me how great it was and how supportive you were. So I want to thank you, Councillor Wilson. Thank you. Bye.
Great, thank you. Look forward to a good time there. Councillor Danko?
Nothing from me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Partridge?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing from me. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Councillor Vanderbeek?
Nothing for me today, sir.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson?
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnson?
Sorry, I'm going to break your pattern, sir.
Yep, it's all good.
Thank you. So just to let everybody know that we're going to have a virtual developer meeting on May the 12th. This is regarding properties at 9451 to 9861 Dickinson Road and 1199 to 1205 Glancaster Road. Then we're going to have an open house about the same development. This is a multi-warehousing development that's part of our AEGD lands, and that will be on May the 19th. I still have some supplies for community cleanup, so please give me a call. And congratulations to Bimbrooks Armstrong Home Hardware grand opening. The construction for the home hardware and the operations when they opened up all occurred during COVID. And finally, the Murphy family, Larry and Doug specifically, were able to have an official grand opening. So congratulations to them. Not only is COVID challenging to most of us, I can't imagine pulling off this project the way they did. And it is really, really a wonderful addition to the village. Case United Church is having their annual garage sale, and this is going to be for 2 days on May the 27th and the 28th. And Glanbrook Community Services online auction. This is to help support the amazing programs for those who not only live in Glanbrook, but also Hamilton Mountain and Ancaster. For information on these events and much more, please go to brendanjohnson.ca or just give me a call at 905-546-4513. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one thing. Valley Park Library and Community Center and Pool is now open. And we've had free swims up there. Mr. Mayor, I know you're going to be coming up when we're doing the ribbon cutting, but it is spectacular. It is absolutely amazing the work that they did at that library. Residents that are going through this are truly over the moon. They were waiting a long time for it to be open. But the library looks fantastic. We have 2 large community meeting rooms now that are joined into one. They were paid for by the Heritage Green Community Trust by $1.25 million grant, which is fantastic. They have state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment. They have creative equipment. They have a Cricut sewing machine, computerized embroidery system. They have this monstrous printing press that you can print pictures on. They have a green room, sir, where you can come up and sing and make your own concert and put behind it the large crowd that Queen used to get when they had their big concerts. They have a Japanese sitting garden right in the middle of the library for quiet and relaxation. They have study rooms. The open area between the library and the community center is wide open. We have a new reception desk there. The pool itself, they took the opportunity to refresh the pool top to bottom. It looks like a brand new pool has been installed there. It is so bright. So I want to thank not just our staff, Chris and all of his staff. I want to thank the contractors who worked on it. They did remarkable work. Some of it was quite technical, given the electronics that they have put in, but everyone is so proud of it, sir. So I look forward to having you there for the ribbon cutting, along with my colleague, Councillor Conley. We will invite him back so that he can come and cut the ribbon, because he was a big advocate of that library expansion, sir. And those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing it well before the grand opening. Actually, I'm going to pop in there because I, on occasion, get the opportunity to play tennis at Valley Park, one of our finest courts. Actually, thanks for the new screens out there, Councillor Clark. Much appreciated. And yeah, it's great transformation, and it's going to stand the test of time for a long, many years. So well done. I do want to acknowledge my attendance at the Brat Music Festival announcement yesterday to welcome new maestro, or a returning maestro, actually, Alan Trudell, to head up the Brat Music Festival for 2022. You know, as you know, the tragic loss of Boris Brat certainly has been a real setback on a personal level for certainly the family and for the orchestra and the festival. But as in a true spirit of Boris Brat, who I'm sure would say the music, the show must go on. They are marshaling forward, and they have secured Maestro Trudell, who has been a longtime friend and a colleague of Boris Brat's, and as Ardith did indicate to me, was actually indicated to be a successor, should that ever happen in the future. Unfortunately, it happened sooner than anyone would have liked. But grateful that they're back to organizing their first series of concerts starting in June the 30th, and I think it'd be great if folks might want to think about providing some attendance there to not only support the festival, but a remembrance of Boris Brat as well. I'm sure we'll be part of that. Happy to and pleased to attend a couple of great fundraisers in our community for the Ukrainian community. One at the Westdale Theatre, which was sponsored by the Hamilton Canadian Local Congress. Proceeds going to obviously to the Ukrainian intake, as well as other humanitarian needs going forward. And there was a lot of gratitude expressed for the $50,000 that this council put forward to help with humanitarian aid shipments going to Ukraine. So to all of you, a thank you from the Ukrainian community here in Hamilton for your help and assistance in that. It's going to do a lot of good things, as well as a fundraiser for the same cause at the Zoetic Theater a couple of nights ago, supported by the Macaluso family and in support of the Ukrainian. With a great entertainment, violinist Vasyl Papadyuk, who is in fact a friend of the president Zelensky, who is going to be touring the world raising funds for the Ukrainian cause. So going forward, so great opportunities to help support, as this council has, and many other in our community are doing as well. And just delighted to see that our staff and the task force, the mayor's task force on resettlement and welcoming Ukrainians into our community, is working exceptionally well. And we're ready, willing, and able as a collaborative, well-coordinated approach to welcome Ukrainians into our community. Some have already arrived as a result of family members that have sponsored them and are taking them into their homes. But we know that additional Ukrainian friends are coming, and they're going to need housing and translation and healthcare and all the other things that come with coming to a new place with a different language and different opportunities. So we're ready and making sure that we're doing all that's necessary. The one thing I would add is that there's a great collaboration between the Greater Toronto Hamilton area mayors and staff to provide an overall ask of the federal government in a collective way, so that we all know what our resource capabilities are, and that we ask for the appropriate resources, which is going to include, obviously, significant housing needs. That we can't, expect that all of these folks are going to be kept in homes to the, for the great benefactors that some citizens would be. There are going to be housing needs, and so that's going to be a central part of the ask to the federal government. But it's done in collaboration with the Greater Toronto Hamilton area mayors and staff, so that we can do this in a coordinated and effective way. So all that work is continuing in an effort to support our Ukrainian friends. That's all I got in terms of other events that are coming. I'm sure there's lots of them, including the Rwandan memorial and coming up due to the Rwandan tragedy that happened so many years ago. And so that's happening, I believe, on Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon. So you're all welcome to attend to help commemorate some tragic events in Rwanda that I know that the Rwandan community will appreciate that level of support. That's it for me. Thank you very much, and thank you for a great meeting. I'm going to turn to Councillor Wilson to give us a motion on the communication updates to be received. Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No worries.
I'm looking for my cheat sheets.
Well, I can just paraphrase if you like.
Thank you, sir.
Your motion would be to receive and approve the council communications as presented.
Thank you. So moved by myself, seconded by Mayor Eisenberger.
Thank you. All in favor? That will require an electronic vote. Thank you. Bear with us. We're close to the end here. We have no in-camera items that I'm aware of. So we have our closed session minutes to approve and then the bylaws. All were able to vote. Thank you. That's carried. On the private and confidential, it's the closed council minutes, and unless there's discussion on the minutes, we can move them. So I'll take a motion to approve if there's no further discussion on them. Moved by Councillor Powers, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Ferguson. All in favor then? Electronic vote again. And we're waiting the final tally, all coming in, I trust. Here we are. That's approved. Second last motion is Councillor Wilson, motion on the bills. Do I need to?
My head and my heart are preoccupied. I'm sorry, Mr.
No
Mayor.
worries. So your motion would be that the bills as presented, which is 018 to 017, be approved and confirmed and signed by the mayor.
Thank you for your assistance today, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. Anytime. Seconded by Councillor Clark.
Thank you.
All in favor of the bills? Thank you. And our last remaining responsibility for today, after a good, positive meeting, thank you all for that, is a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Vanderbeek, seconded by Councillor Pauls. All in favor?
Carried. Oh, it's not May 25th.
You know,
sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
I miss that. I do. Maybe we can do some old time verbal voting when we get back into the council chamber. Or maybe not. Thank you all very much.
12-0.
Have a great rest of the day. Talk to you soon.